It's about passion for a sport we all enjoy. It's about conservation, education, community, and fellowship. It's about a single voice of strength. It's about being part of a common cause for the common good. It's about you. It's about us. It's our time to come together.
We're asking you to join us
and become a proud members American Catfish Association. You'll be happy you did. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, they are.
Welcome, everybody, to ACA Live, our first one of 2024. I apologize to everyone. I've been a little out of pocket here for the last few months, taking care of some personal matters, but I appreciate everybody's patience and support. So slow but sure, get back in the saddle and move forward. And this is one great way to kick all that off. Tonight, we've got a heck of a live broadcast for you, a lot of topics to go over with some great people, a lot of experience here, passion for the sport of catfishing. We're going to talk about conservation. We're going to talk about pay lakes. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. So, grab some popcorn, pull up a chair, and join in and chat. We'll try to address some of your questions and comments in chat. But let me bring everybody in. We've got quite a few people already in here. We've got a few more coming. Here we go. Let me hang on. Where's JR? There he is. JR was a little late coming in. How are you, JR? Can you hear me okay?
Cooling off. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Good. Well, listen, let's go around the table here, or around the screen, and everybody, Dave, start off, introduce yourself. I think a lot of people already know Catfish Dave, but go ahead and let's introduce everybody to the viewers.
All right, people, Catfish Dave here.
Jeremy Chase.
Justin Browning.
I'm Roger DeMint.
I'm
Brian
Chris Sales.
Oh, sorry, bud.
That's all right. I'm Chris Sales.
Ryan Casey.
J.R. Hall.
It's great to have all these guys with us tonight. Appreciate them taking the time. And big special shout out to Jeremy Chase. Jeremy came to us last week and he said, hey, I got this idea as far as putting together this panel of all these great people. I said, man, let's do it. And so he has spearheaded a lot of this. You're going to see people come in and out tonight. I know there's a couple of people that may be joining us as well. So I'm looking forward to possibly others joining in on the conversation with us here. But we're going to go until there's no more going. So, hang in there with us. I'm going to bring up chat here so I can kind of review what's going on if I can. It's flying. I thought it would. But, guys, we kind of got sidetracked. We were talking before we went live, and we were talking about a lot of regulation efforts that are going on around the country and the processes and things like that. But one of the big things, and JR, you've brought it up recently, and I think we should probably get into it a little bit right off the bat. You guys agree with me or not, but we can talk about pay lakes. And I think the pay lakes are going to be a catalyst for a bunch of other conversations. So, I know that, one of the things, about pay lakes, and I think the misunderstanding by a lot of people is that as much as you want them to go away, pay lakes have been around for decades, and unfortunately, they will continue to be around. The biggest challenge is going to be how to properly regulate them so that fish being taken from public waters, they're being put into these pay lakes, and these fish are being abused, and just, it's not the way it should be. And there's got to be a way of fixing it. We have some certain ideas, the ACA, but I'd certainly like to hear from everybody else.
Well, everybody, I thought it was a good idea to get everybody together and get on here and talk. Good people, good ideas, share what you experience. The difference between pay lakes is there's the old school pay lake that Glenn mentioned, and then there's the trophy pay lakes of modern day, which has been, I don't know how long the trophy pay lake's been stocking. 20 years they've been stocking big catfish solid, or
it started in the early 90s.
and there's been a recent uptick thanks to JR and some other people involved here and others sharing what they're experiencing out there with commercial fishing, the taking of large catfish in crazy numbers. I think we all know that there's recent commercial fishing owner, pay lake owner that comments and says that we're all insane, crazy. If you care about large catfish, we're nuts. And that's the farthest thing from the truth.
Well, he's protecting his investment.
Well, that's probably more along the lines of the truth. But we're not going to, give him the time of day to even mention it. Is what it is. He's going to put out another video after this, I'm sure, and we're going to continue to fight for what makes sense and non-disgusting practices. And if that individual or anybody else wants to come to the table and talk, let's go. Let's talk. And I think we all kind of feel that way. Let's, anybody can. That's kind of how we're here tonight. So.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, and we have proposed this, the ACA has developed various regulations, our regulation wish list, if you will, that we present to every state. And part of that, as far as the pay lakes go, is that the patrons, the people that fish the pay lakes, they pay a fee every time they go there of $5 or $10. Okay, and that money goes towards the enforcement of the regulations of these pay lakes. For conservation efforts within the state. And that's the other thing that a lot of people have to realize is that you can have the best regulations in place, but now you have to turn to enforcement, and enforcement of these regulations is a huge challenge, especially with a lot of the states now limited in their resources to be able to afford the necessary enforcement that is going to, manage not only pay lakes, but just fishing in general.
Well, if you can't police something, you shouldn't allow it. I grew up at a pay lake my family owned, so I've seen both sides of it. I've never hid it behind nothing. You know what I mean? I've said it from day one. When it got to where pay lakes went to stock and trophy fish, I said, this ain't for me, and I have fought against it ever since. When you come in and they stock a load of fish, and usually blues is the worst, they're dead in 2 days, 2-3 days. They're floating everywhere, and they just don't care because they're making so much money. They just go get another load, and that's one of the biggest problems. In Ohio, one of the biggest problems in Ohio we got now is, they don't, when you talk to the DNR, when you talk to agriculture, DNR says, well, we're not over the pay lakes. We have no authority over any of them. Then it's the agricultural department. Well, then you go to the ag department and they say, well, we're not over pay lakes. Well, then when you get them both together and say, hey, who is over, who is allowing this? That's when they come back and say, it's a small business that's fell through the cracks, and nobody wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole because it's political suicide. There ain't another business out there that's unregulated. This is it. And in Ohio, the worst part we have is trying to find out what and who we can get to regulate.
Yeah. Well, that's the biggest thing is regulation. I mean, JR, of recent day, and not that you haven't in the past, but recently, you have brought a great deal of attention to the pay lake issue. I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, how do you think that, and everybody here, I mean, how do you think the best way is to combat the situation with pay lakes?
me personally, I've sat back for years. I'm blessed where I live and very good fishery. Commercial fish is not a huge thing here and not near the serious issue, but I've just seen it. Browning is awesome at sharing information. You can't fix a problem if people don't know it exists. And I started looking at it from a different perspective. And it went back to some post on social media back in February about what can you do for your sponsor to, bring more people in the business and money aspect of it. And I just kind of looked at it different and was like, well, what can my sponsors or any sponsors, big brand name, what can they do for us? And why hasn't anybody taken a stand on this? There's a lot of people with a lot of followings that can, just posting and making awareness out there for people to, to see that this is a problem, because there's tons of posts being shared and there's a lot of comments of, what is this even a thing? I'm like, oh yeah, this is a big thing. It's just nobody knows about it. It was nice to see lots of shares, lots of information getting out there. I've tried to tell everybody, if you're going to have, the opposing side's going to talk to you or want to pick a fight with you or name call. Best thing is just let them reflect what they are and just try to be informative, as nice as you can be. And it's not hard to convince people this is do what?
Is that hard for you to be nice to those people when they're trying to tear you down?
I was a paramedic for 15 years. I've got pretty thick skin. It doesn't really bother me.
Hey, you've done a heck of a job.
I see that you can go back to one of the big posts. It had 600-700 shares or whatever. And, there's a lot of comments that, there's a few that's like, quit whining, whatever. Let them do that. Let them represent. That's what that is. I get pay lakes ain't going anywhere, and I don't have a problem with people, like what we've talked about, channel cats and fingerlings and raise your own fish. Personally, I think Ryan Casey's probably had the best idea that I've heard to date when he did the show with Alex. About, this is the size lake you have. This is all you can stock for the year. If you can't keep that, then you need to do better at keeping your fish alive. I think that's something you can present, as a majority to somebody, and that's easier to convince somebody. Also, the pay lake in general, the trophy, they incriminate themselves. Just let them show and post and do it all they want. This is not hard to convince somebody that knows nothing about it that this is morally and ethically wrong. And I hope to continue holding some of these bigger names in the field or in the industry itself. Let them use their social influencers that follow them or their sponsored staff or whatever. Make the awareness, because it goes along with anything. If you don't know it's a problem, nobody wants to fix it.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly it. I mean, I also think that within the catfish community, pay lakes, they're well known, and it's a well known problem. Again, the thing is that they are a small business, considered a small business within some of these states, and you are not going to get a state that is going to move to put a small business out of business. So I agree. The only way that you can do it is to properly regulate them and to curb the mishandling of these fish, the mistreatment of the fish. And Ryan's suggestion regarding number of fish per acre, where you're getting the fish from, as far as, the pay lake industry starting their own cottage industry to raise the trophy catfish that they want. I think if they were to do that, you'd see them taking a whole lot better care of these fish, because of the time it takes for a mature trophy catfish to get to, 40, 50, 60 pounds. So I think there's a lot of different ways that the pay lakes can operate, but operate without, raping public water, using these fish that they're taking.
100 pounders, over 10, was it, JR, that got stocked 100-pound fish?
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. And that's just like, Browning is awesome at sharing information. Sometimes the right person sharing the same information, and this goes to social influencers out there. If you're watching, make awareness to this. Careful how you word it and get the right attention. You can bring awareness to this. It's not hard. Browning's a little, harsh sometimes how he describes things, but you can word it right. Hold your sponsors accountable. Some people, I've had people call me, it's like, man, you're gonna piss the sponsor off. You're liable to lose something. Listen, I ain't cashed a check from a sponsor yet. I don't care about, if someone's mad at me because I brought awareness to a problem that we're all going to deal with. Accountability goes so far, and that it's not just the fishing, that's just in life in general. Make people accountable. You want me to do this? Okay, what are you going to do? What have you done the last 10 years? And I'm glad to see that a lot of awareness has went out. I've seen it, all forms of social media, mostly good. Obviously you'll see some that hate, and it's whatever. I could care less if someone's not happy about it. But I'm glad to see the accountability, and I hope it continues. I wish it to continue, and hopefully it gets the attention of the right person, because that's what it's going to take. The right person getting pissed off about this. The moral and ethics side of this, and that's going to help us tremendously. But it's hard to find that one person with just a few, if you have a few followers or TikTok or whatever. But if you got people that's got 300,000, 500,000 followers, it's easier to find that person we're looking for. We can call in a favor. We can, use their name and branding and help with this situation. We're going to need all the help we get.
I don't know if I'm sure many people are familiar with Joe Rogan. But Joe Rogan actually brought up Pay Lake a while back. I mean, you can't. I mean, right now, I mean, you don't get anybody hotter than that as far as in the public eye talking about it. But what has to happen is that it has to continue, and it has to continue to the masses, so that they realize, just the abuse that's going on, and getting the regulations in place. Tonight we're very fortunate. Representative Chris Sells from Alabama is with us. Chris, as far as getting regulations passed, getting these kind of things addressed, where's the starting point? If somebody wanted to get involved with a state and to get regulations, revised and taking it right through the legislative process, how would you recommend that they start that process?
So thank you, Glenn. Thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this tonight. First thing to answer that question, I'll say is there's two different things. There's regulations that are passed through the Department of DNR, correct? The regulations, like the skipjack limit. That's not a law, that's a regulation. But we can pass laws and they overpower the regulations. So how I got involved is I love to fish, and I went catfishing with a buddy of mine, and then I had another guy take me fishing, and Stacy Gaston lives about 15 miles down the road. So, and next thing you know, I'm in a boat with Mike Mitchell. Then I'm in a boat with Josh Brown. So October of 21, I went and bought my own boat. So then I
you actually went fishing with Mike Mitchell,
and I made it back.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, no, I had a good time with Mike, and I've been with Josh twice. I was gonna get JR to help me, but I posted a picture of a fish, and he said, "Buddy, it looks like you got it figured out." So, but anyway, I enjoy it. But what I say is find your representatives and your senators in your area, and see if they like anything to do outdoors, and take them fishing. Show them, explain it to them. Take them.
Great idea.
And I'm going to do that. I'm going to take some DNR guys.
You might want to take them to a pay lake just so they can see the abuse going on.
Yeah, that gets some attention right there. And my goal is to keep Alabama's resources in Alabama. I don't care if it's bait. I don't care if it's fish. We don't allow people to come here and trap our deer. So we don't need to allow people to come here and take our catfish off. So you're going to come and take our resources and then take them off somewhere to make a profit off of our resources. And that doesn't work for me.
I'll make this statement. Any politician in Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, or West Virginia want to go to a pay lake with myself or Mr. Browning, if we would be allowed in, I will pay the way, whatever it takes to get us there. Let's do it.
I don't think they're going to let me in.
Well, maybe not you, but we can find somebody.
So I think that
I'll cover it as a business owner, as a concerned angler, whatever it takes.
I'll take them to the river, but the pay lakes.
To JR's point, though, and what Glenn said earlier, pay lakes are a big deal but there's only a big deal really to our catfishing community, which in the big scheme of things isn't as big as we need it to be. But like what JR is saying, with the social influence that has been going on and the fire that's been lit, now it's getting in front of people that, like Joe Rogan, who's, I don't know if he's ever catfished before, or, you know, going across the entire network. And it's just a matter of time if we continue to push and share this information that it lands in the right hands or in front of the right eyes. But also, you know, be able to word it in a way that you're not negative. Because, you know, if you just go throwing stones right off the bat, we're just not going to get anywhere.
And that's the thing. You can't, you know, I encourage everybody, if you've never been to a commission meeting, go and spend 4, 5, 6 hours in the audience. And these guys are responsible for everything from muskrat to moose. And, you know, when it comes to catfish, I mean, it's a small blip on their agenda.
Right.
And you have to start with the proper individuals. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but the best place to start is going to be talking to the fisheries chief of that state, because he can go to the biologist or he can go to law enforcement and he can get the data and see what's going on, so that if there's something that needs to be reviewed, the fisheries chief, the director, can get this stuff reviewed so that it can be then assembled and taken to the commission for consideration to be reviewed. Chris, am I correct so far?
You're correct with that. But like I said, if you can find a state representative or senator that will go there for you, they'll work a lot harder for that person than they will for you.
Right. And again, there's a lot of politics involved with something like this, and there's a lot of time that it takes with this as well. You're not going to wave a magic wand and this stuff's going to go away in a matter of months. It's going to take years and could be even a generational thing. So
here's a question I get, because I guess maybe I just don't understand how the DNR can say that, you know, the catfish is not theirs and it goes to agriculture. But, you know, it's the same thing as going out and capturing white-tailed deer and then pinning them up and then charging somebody to come hunt that deer. There's no way in the world that would fly for a second.
Exactly.
Steve. And so, you know, for them to just point fingers back and forth, that the fish is a natural resource and they are in charge of our natural resources.
They
are.
But
it's ever with Steve Douglas. What's going on, Steve Douglas?
Hey guys.
Speaking of a
good to have you,
sponsor,
Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Glenn.
Yeah.
Let me just say and kind of throw this out there. Now you have yourself, myself, Steve as business owners. Also, Steve's a content creator.
Ryan,
Yeah.
JR.
Can I finish? All
You're
right. So you have the three of us. You have a state representative from Alabama. You have two really good guides on good bodies of water that are, you know, nationally known guides. You have a content creator with Catfish Dave and Roger. And I mean, what about the small businesses that every one of us has created in the fishing world? And I know people say, well, they're not going to touch a small business. They're not going to touch a small business. But look at the effect that it's having on every one of our businesses by doing nothing.
You know, it's look at it. This is, but we are doing something. And if you look at the panel tonight, you can see that there's a lot being done. Just at least bringing everybody together to move forward, you know, in a unified way. We're all on the same page. We all want the same thing.
That people say not enough happens fast enough. Sorry,
excuse me. But people need to understand the process. People need to understand that this stuff, it's not something that you can demand. It's not something that you can force down anybody's throat. You know, pay lakes are the bad guy in our eyes.
Yeah.
But we're the bad guy in the pay lakes eyes. We're the bad guy in the commercial guys. We're the bad guy with maybe some bait dealers. You know, that legislation that's out there, regulations that are in place, not everybody likes, not everybody's willing to accept. You know, you don't want to take away somebody's livelihood. The responsibility of every one of us, whether we're recreational fishermen or commercial fishermen or whatever, you know, needs to be the protection of the public resources. Where when that protection of the public resources is compromised, that's where regulations and where politics and where the DNRs need to step in and make that correction. It's as simple as that. And I think that most of these commissions, most of these directors, most of the legislation realizes that. And people have to understand too that their constituents, you know, are also commercial fishermen, are also pay lake operators. So they're going to hear from all sides.
But
So
they're not going to. I don't believe they're going to do it until they're forced. I mean, in my experience, from what I've seen so far, I mean, if everybody,
I hate to, you know, I hear what you're saying, Justin, but I hate to use the word forced. Encourage, suggested, you know, help the situation along.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, until they're, we'll just say strongly encouraged.
Strongly encouraged.
Blackmail.
Yeah, I mean,
Can I speak on the financial thing for a second?
Yeah,
man. Go.
Speak on financial. I watched a video, and this is where we need information out on our side, because the Pay Lake side is putting videos out constantly on their argument and why what they're doing is okay. And one of those is the financial reason. And what they're saying is these pay lakes are businesses, these commercial fishermen are businesses. All these people come to these pay lakes, they enjoy these pay lakes. On this panel tonight, I'm seeing just 3 people right here in this box that are making their living off these fish. Okay. If you go to this man, Steve Douglas's Catfish Conference, how many people are in there? How many vendors are in there? How many of those guys are businesses? Okay. Now, this is just us known guys. Okay. I have a big bait and tackle shop here, and this speaks for all bait and tackle shops in Tennessee or anywhere where this catfishing is popular. These people aren't on this panel. They don't know what's happening. But Dave at Big Fish Outfitters gets a huge amount of business because of catfishermen that came here, not only locally, but from out of state to fish for these catfish because we had good catfishing. So Dave's business, all these bait and tackle stores around here selling Mad Cat's rods, these are all businesses, and they don't even know this is even taking place, that are benefiting off these catfish. Okay. Yeah. And think of the motels. People come stay at motels. They buy gas in your state. It's state revenue. It's everybody's business.
That was actually one of my speaking points tonight, was about how much revenue is generated when a large event shows up to a town. So, you follow any of the King Cat series or follow any of the major tournament series, when they roll into town, the restaurants sales go up, the hotels are up, gas is sold, everything economy is boosted because that area is sought after for its trophy catfish or whatever. I live in Southern Ohio. Our waters here have been crushed for years, and you don't hear, I'm friends with tons of people out in the country, and I don't ever invite somebody to come fish Ohio River. It's just not worth traveling for. And, it's tough and devastating when you see just how much help it could have for an area if a large organization or a tournament came into the area and boosted the economy there. We're missing out on all of that because day after day, our fish are being taken from the Ohio River, and, studies and numbers will show that over time, it's just being depleted constantly. There's millions of facts to go back and look at, but at the end of the day, it's we're losing out big time on what is available out there because our resources are depleting.
Well, the economic impact of catfishing, and people need to realize too, and I think most people do now, but catfishing is the second largest segment now in the recreational fishing industry, which is tens of billions of dollars as far as recreational fishing. So when a state does not have the proper protection of catfish, people, Rogers, you just pointed out, are not going to a certain state. They're going to a state like, Chris's, in Alabama.
Yeah.
You know, the fisheries in Alabama are probably some of the best, if not the best, in the country. And there's people that flock to Alabama because of the great fisheries. The economic impact those fisheries bring to the state is probably in the tens of millions of dollars every year.
I want
You
to talk.
got to get to the right people though.
Right.
And what I mean by that, Justin Browning, I think you was at that meeting where a bunch of us stood up, and I mentioned the Catfish Conference. I mean, we generate about $2.5 million each year, not just us, but the vendors, the people who visit us, and everything. And the commissioners that we brought this in front of didn't care. They didn't care a damn bit about the money generated. So I think you got to get to somebody higher than them commissioners to make that effect. And we actually had the Kentucky Tourism visit the Catfish Conference one time, and they was really impressed, but they still didn't do anything. You know, they're not worried about the money. So I don't know if we can use that as a tool in our.
Oh, I guarantee you that there's people within every state that is interested in the economic impact. Chris, Alabama has done such a great job, you know, overall. Would you say that economic impact is one of the major considerations to any kind of regulations or law that are put in place?
Unfortunately not. I'm going to say that, like everywhere else, they don't pay that a lot of attention. But what I will say is catfishing has changed so much. I've only been involved for a few years, but I think it's changed so much in the last 10 or 20 years. And I think most of these regulations are old, and I think they need to be brought up to date. I think that's one of the biggest problems.
The sport has exploded, and as well as the amount of pay lakes has exploded.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what Roger was saying is his area was one of the original areas impacted by this commercial fishing for trophy pay lakes. Now, I watched a video from Mr. Pay Lake himself, and he's spreading the message that if you commercially fish these rivers, they actually get better. They end up with more big fish in them. And if that is true, then why is he coming to my waters? Why is he going to JR's waters? Why is he going to the James River and the Potomac River if this commercial fishing is making the Ohio River where he started better? It's not. And that's why Roger is traveling to my waters. I've seen Roger on the James River because his waters are terrible, you know. And I've seen him on my waters down there towards Nickajack or Gunnersville, wherever it was, because he has to travel. And it's the same with me. For me to go make a video now, if I want good fishing, I'm driving 100 miles away when we used to have this right in my back door.
Dave, how many digital content creators do you think? I mean, what does that market and business look like over the last, or Steve, Roger?
Everybody on my Facebook is a digital creator. So in a sense, if they're monetized at all, they are a business. Even if they don't get the views I get, they sell their hats because of their channel. They sell their shirts. They sell this. They get members. It is a business. The amount of content creators is crazy.
You used to have a 9-to-5 job, Dave. Now you have a 24/7 job, right?
Right. But see, it's become more of a job to get these fish on video now because I have to travel farther away because what these people are doing up there is not sustainable. And this is the problem. It's not just these people. This keeps growing and growing because once one guy sees this guy make money with the pay lake, I heard him, the guy at Paradise, say there's hundreds of these lakes just in that Ohio area now. And now they're popping up in the Carolinas. They're popping up in Tennessee. They've been in Georgia. They're popping up everywhere. And you can't take thousands and thousands of pounds of 50 to 100-pound fish, fix it, that takes 20 years to get that size. Because I'm going to be old and dead before my lake is as good as it was in the 1990s. I'll never see that again. And that's
why it's so important that these states have the regulations, because as you well pointed out, Dave, is that, you know, if you have one pay lake operation that's taking hundreds of fish every year from public waters, imagine now multiply that by several hundred pay lake operations throughout the country.
One lake advertising they stocked 9,000 pounds of flatheads or 10,000 pounds of blues. You know, one lake had to put 110 pounder in there. You know, there hasn't been 100 pounder caught out of my lake in like 7 years now since all this
Put that 9,000 pounds into a perspective. Let's call this Reedsville, Ohio math. Okay, you take 9,000 pounds of flatheads that was claimed 400 fish. Okay, so and he said I believe there was about 300 tri-state trophy pay lakes.
300 to 400.
300 to 400. Let's call it 300 times 400 fish. It's 120,000. And he said that was just one stocking. If every one of those 300 pay lakes does that, that's 120,000 flatheads that he claims he only does it once a year. But we believe it to be a lot more than that because photos and stocking videos show that.
They post videos every week. Look how many pounds we stocked this week. Why? Right. Because all the other fish are dead.
But that was just the flatheads. So that's 300 legs. That's 9,000 pounds. That's 2,700,000 pounds. 2,700,000 pounds of flatheads in a tri-state area, and I think it's like Ohio, Kentucky, and probably West Virginia. He's referring to Indiana, and maybe Indiana, but Indiana doesn't have that many trophy pay lakes. A lot of them are farm raised, from my understanding and my investigation. But
they got
some, yeah. But still, that's a lot in this region. That's not including the Carolinas. That's not including what goes to dog food plants. That's not including what goes to market. That's not including nothing else. That's just going into a pay lake, caught a handful of times, guts pulled out of their throat and killed. Bottom line.
J.R. Hall's been dealing with commercial fishing for years, but it's these food guys. And they don't really want the big catfish. And when I go to Gunnersville, I don't catch the numbers that I will in a Watts car or Chickamauga. But when you catch a fish, you catch a fish. That rod's going to bend. You're most likely going to get a 30-pounder. And here again, that's why people travel there. It's the same reason these people are going to these pay lakes. They want to catch it. But that's like shooting deer in a fence. It is morally wrong what you're doing to the wildlife. It's a totally different game. We are at least releasing fish. Catch and release. Pressure is pressure. There is some mortality rate even with us, but not 9,000 pounds in just one stocking of trophy fish.
Yeah.
That's
where it has to be curbed. I mean, the abuse and the mishandling of these fish. I mean, beyond the number of fish that are being taken to the pay lakes, it's how these fish are being cared for. I think Ryan's suggestion as far as limiting the number of fish per acre is probably one of the best suggestions I've heard. That's number one. Number two is that I'm sorry?
It's called carrying capacity, Glenn. And I mean, it's well-known, system used for fisheries biologists and everybody else. Every body of water has a carrying capacity with nutrients, forage density, density of nutrients in the water, and how many fish that lake can sustain each type of fish. So, I mean, you have to have enough forage and nutrients to provide the forage to have enough basically nutrients in them to sustain a large population of fish like blue catfish. So their bodies of water are way too small. They don't have any forage in them. And, the biggest thing for me with the trophy pay lakes is obviously they're stocking these things like it's a renewable resource, which it's not. I mean, if you look at the red snapper in the ocean, they overfished those in the 70s through the 90s, early 2000s. I mean, the river's not an endless supply of these things. Yeah. Is what I'm saying.
If you can wipe out fish in the ocean, you can wipe them out in these little bitty rivers.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, the biggest thing for me is the wanton waste. There's nobody eats these fish, right? Yeah, so I mean, if you're a conservation agent, every state I've ever heard of has a wanton waste law in place. I mean, nobody's eating these things. They're throwing them in a dumpster. That alone should be, it's criminal. It's criminal. We all hate it, but I mean, there's several things you could go after these guys for. I mean, they know it's wrong fundamentally. We all know it's wrong.
Any other animal on the planet, it'd be animal cruelty.
It doesn't matter what animal. I mean, fish. If you throw a fish, I mean, you can't just waste meat. If you're gonna take something, eat it. These fish don't even get eaten; they get thrown in the dumpster. I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, they do.
If they had.
Yeah, in fact, if you go back on the ACA Facebook page, we created a video last year regarding the pay lakes, and you'll see the number of people that gather around these pay lakes, and you'll see the sores that these fish have that people are taking pictures of. You'll see them piled up in a dumpster. out in the woods, just
Well, they're
just
putting copper sulfate and chemicals in there
yeah,
to induce them to bite. And I
yeah.
mean, there's no forage, there's no depth of the water. They can't sustain the fish that they're putting in there. And I mean, ultimately, it's a death sentence. It's a cruel death. I mean, I'm not a tree hugger or anything like that. I hook fish and I love catching fish. I practice selective harvest. My clients release everything over 10 pounds. I do that to ensure my fishery is sustainable for as long as I'm able to fish for it. But these guys they're on my waters too, and I don't agree with taking someone's livelihood away, but I don't agree with their livelihood. I think
They're
there's other
taking
ways
yours
to
away.
do it. And Glenn,
Yeah.
you said something earlier that these guys were charging, or the state was charging a fee or something like that.
No, I suggested that they charge a fee per patron to
Sure.
go towards the management and regulation, enforcement and conservation.
Yeah.
Because the states, and Chris, you can speak to this as well. Most of the states, the resources they have for regulation enforcement is compromised. They don't have the kind of money they once used to have.
That's right. Yeah, we're down about 30 officers in Alabama.
Yeah. So, I mean, the enforcement is got to be paid for. And that's why I suggest that the patrons that go there, if they're charged a $5, $10 fee per visit, that can go to a fund that is going to manage these pay lakes. Now, a place like Ohio, that's got they probably have the most pay lakes out of any of the states. It's a lot of enforcement, but it's also a lot of revenue that they could raise.
Glenn,
about something here. The moral issue here, okay? Hunting, fishing, it's been around since the beginning of time. And it's one thing if those fish get used for food. Now, as a hunter, I don't hunt. I fish too much. But as a hunter, if you injure a deer and it gets away from you, most hunters feel bad for that animal. They try to track it down and put it out of its misery, or they'll feel guilty afterwards. Okay? And if you look at nature itself is cruel. Shark's going to come up and bite this fish in half. Lions kill their prey, eat them alive, all this stuff. But how long does it take that prey to die? Okay, there's nothing more cruel. There's nothing in nature that is this long of a death that these fish are going through. This is a starvation thing, getting chemicalized thing. It's crueler than anything in nature. At least when that shark bites that fish in half, it's over with. And it went to something. It went to sustain that shark. This goes to nothing. It's just waste getting thrown in the field.
It goes to this in somebody's pocket.
Right. And it's slowly money out of my pocket. Why? Hey, I'm traveling 100 miles one way to fish. That's money out of my pocket when I could have just traveled 20.
The other thing too is that, and we've talked about this, I've talked about this with a number of people, is that, regulations, there are certain things that they could do that would actually curb the pay lakes, the ability of the pay lakes to stock their ponds, one of which is transportation of live fish within the state. And I learned, not too long ago, I mean, how you word that is very important. If you state over state lines, it becomes a federal issue. But if you say transportation of live fish within the state, that is a state issue and that can be enforced. So anybody, and they have to have a special permit to, in fact, be transporting those live fish. That's one way, I think, to curb the transportation of these fish to these pay lakes.
Tennessee did that.
And Chris, you and I talked about this the other day.
That's right. And that's one of my goals.
Yeah, it's going to prevent people from taking live fish out of the states, and I think that every state should employ something like that. Tennessee's done a great job. You talk about what's been accomplished. I mean, there's a lot of people in here tonight that have spent years. Steve Douglas, Justin, Jeremy, all of you guys have spent years in pursuing regulation reforms in various states. In Tennessee, Bill Dance and Johnny Morris, were instrumental in getting the 34-inch rule, in place there. And I think that for the most part, Tennessee's regulations can be looked at as a pretty significant blueprint for other states to consider. So it's just finding the regulations, and within a region, if the region can get together and have more uniform regulations. So when you go from state to state, it's a 34-inch rule, a 35-inch rule. You know that the krill limit is X. That there's maybe a slot limit, or maybe even a time of year. When you can you can fish for these fish like flatheads, or when the spawn's going on. I know that the Pay Lakes they were bragging about all the flatheads they brought in. Funny how they can bring them in this time of year, right? They find them and bring them in.
Spawn.
I mean, how many fish did they take off a nest?
Well, the thing is, a lot of these places, I mean, Ohio actually has some great regulations, and so does Kentucky. Also has some regulations as well. But even in chat, I'm watching a lot of these comments where there are several regulations that would work, but they don't have the resources to enforce them. They're not abiding by these regulations yet. Nothing's, they're not getting caught. Nothing's really happening to them. So it's just continuing to evolve because the states don't have the resources that they need in order to enforce these regulations. A lot of places have great regulations. They just don't have the resources to enforce them.
That's Tennessee's problem, and this is why I said they're a weak link for Alabama, because you have Gunnersville that runs over the Tennessee line. So I've been to Alabama, right? And in the few times I've been, I've already been checked. I got checked last time I went to the Ohio River. I never get checked here. You see them out on Memorial Day, and this is the problem: is there's not enough of them. If you look at the number of PWRI agents per region, there's not enough of them to do the enforcement. But if Alabama passes the law, they just come up through South Pittsburgh and pull over into Tennessee where nobody's checking them and leave out of Tennessee. And they're getting how much for these trophy fish per pound? It's a ridiculous amount. So it's worth boating them all the way up to South Pittsburgh ramp and coming up through Tennessee.
Hey, Dave, let's touch on that. People have been offered, rod and reel fishermen have been offered.
I call these fingers, okay? These guys up there have their connections down here, okay? And everybody I know that is even Facebook famous at all has been messaged by these people that they will buy these fish from us. I didn't accept their friend request or whatever, but a lot of these people are going to take this. And I know, there's a guy down here, I'm not going to mention names, but he's from up there. He had a pond here that could have been used as a holding pond for them. He admitted that they were down here catching skipjack to sell to them guys up there, to sell in those lakes. But it's like when I was in JR's water, there's the same guy down there. I was down there at a certain time of year, and he was out there 24 hours a day. He was camping out at the point. Now, they checked his vehicle. Alabama checked his vehicle. But this is the problem. He don't necessarily have to bring those fish back to the vehicle if they've got a connection living right there on the lake. They just pull up to that guy's private dock, and he's got a little holding pond, aerators, live wells, whatever they need to keep these fish alive. They just come down and pick them up. I mean, these people, they have a different kind of reach than just what you see a commercial fishing boat out here.
It's not always the hoop.
There's a network out there. Undoubtedly there's a network out there. And
just to touch up on what Dave just said, just FYI, we nailed his ass. Just so you know. Yeah, we it's been taken care of.
See, and I was down there 3 months later, and the same guy is still there fishing all the time. And he admitted to me that his friend was a commercial fisherman for these Pay Lakes. And
what do you?
So yeah,
let me ask you this question: what would be your suggestion? Again, now take into consideration that most states, they don't have the resources, or they have resources, but they're limited as far as regulation, enforcement.
The highest,
the actual Pay Lakes.
What do you think the solution is?
The highest.
If you were to present a solution or a suggestion as far as the regulation, what would it be? How would you correct it?
You can't catch these guys everywhere, but you can catch them where they're going, which is the Pay Lake. That's where you have to regulate them at.
Yep.
You can't catch them everywhere, but where they're taking all the fish to. And like you said, there's hundreds of them popping up. So, I mean, you either stop them there or, we get each state to get a 34-inch law, a no transportation of live fish. And sure, we're going to get some. We're going to get some tickets. You have to make the fines scary enough where it's going to matter, where you're confiscating vehicles, boats, things like that. Because a $1,500 fine to these guys is a slap on the wrist. It's cost doing business.
Yep.
So,
How about start losing stuff? Lose a boat. Lose
exactly.
your nets. Get hit where it actually will hurt them.
Exactly.
Well, that's the problem they had in Alabama with the skipjack. They was giving tickets. We sat down there one day and watched them.
Oh, it looked like the cartels coming in and out with truckloads of coolers on dualies.
And
they come back an hour later. They'd have more ready to go with them. Boom, boom, boom. We called.
And they came down and busted every one of them.
They started writing tickets.
And the next day they was doing it again because the fines are $45 is what he told us.
Right.
And,
I think it's per over. So if you're
right.
it adds up, and some of those guys down there just pay the fine because it's
the price of doing business.
And they get caught 1 out of 50 times.
Yeah.
Right. So okay, so one of the suggestions is obviously, Ryan, you made mention monitoring the pay lakes and what they're bringing in. Justin and Jeremy, you're suggesting higher fines.
Well, I'm suggesting this is what I'm suggesting. I'm
guessing you're going to
suggest. We're just suggesting, you know what I mean? I'm suggesting, hey, if they can't police it, then they stop it till they can police it. Farm raised fish only, no wild caught fish. And you know what? You're not putting nobody out of business. If nothing else, you're creating a business with the farm raised people.
You can trophy catfish are more or less to sensationalize the offering of the pay lake. That's all.
And they're still going to be able to get their fish sticks, you know what I mean, and their fillets and everything else. Dog food people still get theirs, but right now, hey, they need to shut down.
How else would you do it? I mean,
well, then I'd go after that. I'd get them for gambling. Because basically these are gambling pitches, all they are. 100%. It's a cash business. Nothing's taxed. I mean, every now and then they'll get
some taxes. I mean,
after they get busted.
Well,
after they get busted for a while, they'll start sending out 1099s and but then it'll fall after a while. That'll fall off again. I mean, I grew up in it. I know how it is. I've seen both sides. I've caught fish with commercial fishermen, fish pay lakes, before I knew what. But once I seen the fish piling up dead, that was not it. It was not for me, and I fought against it ever since.
But again, you're talking about gambling. You're talking about cash businesses that aren't being reported. I mean that's an enforcement. That's an enforcement thing. How do you enhance the enforcement? How do you enforce the current regulations, let alone new regulations? That's the challenge.
Well, in Ohio right now, they're not being regulated.
You know how the only suggestion I got, and I know I'm bad for this, but hey, it works. I'm telling you. I'm telling you, it works. When you start naming names on who's letting this happen, it works.
Not on here.
I mean,
the names till later.
Because these departments. Let me tell you about some of the fish. This is how these pay lakes work, especially some of the bigger ones. And I'm sure they're watching, so they'll know exactly who I'm talking about.
Oh, I'm sure.
Pay lake owner moves in, starts this business. I got a buddy that lives right down the road from this certain pay lake. Guy passed out in his driveway on heroin. OD'd, tore his mailbox up, tore his culvert up. What's he do? They call it, so instead of getting the police out there, because the police are out there all the time anyway, pay lake owner goes and gets this said crackhead. They Narcan him or whatever they do, get him up there. He tells the guy, hey, don't worry, don't call nobody, I'll take care of this. And he did. He gave a couple cases of beer, put a new mailbox up, fixed his culvert. Next thing you know, he's buying the canine dogs, all the officers of the local police station. He's buying them canine bulletproof vests for their canines. He's giving the volunteer fire. These guys love them. You know what I mean? And that's what they do. They build. I mean, all the little stores around this place. I mean, it's crazy the money that these places bring in. And these, I mean, they get everybody in that community to love them. And then it's like, you know,
They
there was
turn the blind eye.
there was
to
a
what's really
time
going on.
there was a time, I swear to God, I had to put. Now I didn't put this out on Facebook because I didn't want to give them the dissatisfaction. I couldn't put new tires on my truck and trailer. They got cut so many times, and you know, I just laugh and go get some more $7 tires at the junkyard, throw on there, get me by until they cut them again. But the problem is, you know, these places, you know, they all say, you know, they're for handicap, they're for this and that. I'm telling you, these places are pits of I mean, these places are not family friendly places that they talk about. These places are, I mean,
They're cash cows. They're abusive cash cows.
Yeah, the majority of them.
The trophy pay lakes, the ones that they're going in and gambling and doing it. The majority of them he's talking about.
I'm talking, yeah.
There are still some good mom and pop pay lakes.
Again, I mean, I'm looking. You know, what I'm asking for is I understand, Justin, what you're saying as far as what they do to their community, and they enhance their presence to the community, and they get people to really like them and back them up. That's great. But there's still an obligation by these pay lakes to do things right. And how do you get them to do it? How do you get them to do it right?
I mean,
how do you enforce it? And you know what, you know, I'd like to see some real creative ideas as far as how we as a community can assist the states in the enforcement of these regulations that are on the books, to find the deficiencies in the regulations, to be able to bring it to the attention of the states. And Justin, to your point, you know, if they can't regulate it, then it shouldn't be even allowed, period, until they can. I mean, that's certainly something to consider.
And what's hard is, you know,
how do you do it?
What's hard, in my opinion, to get an answer for you is, I mean, I don't think there's a good answer out there. You can be on the river witnessing a guy breaking the law with video. I mean, I sat in his garage yesterday and was on the phone with the fisheries director in Ohio over a
he
guy.
Wouldn't let you in the house. He's had to sit in the garage.
Well,
putting planer boards together, picking up some fishing rods.
So, you know, I mean, 90% of the time when you call, they won't come. In Kentucky, you got to call the state police. I honestly, if there was an emergency, I don't even know if you could get somebody out there.
So you're saying it comes down to enforcement?
I mean, Kentucky is so bad right now. You have to go through the dispatch. They don't go through dispatch no more. Like the 1-800 tip line and all that. That's not how you call it in anymore. You have to go to the state police dispatch in Kentucky. And
in any state, should you not call turn in a poacher if you see something?
You should always do it. But
people don't know, so tell them.
Yeah.
Call the poaching number if you see a violation actively going on, to get at least a record of it and somebody to actually check it.
Yeah, if somebody does see something going on out there, do not call your buddy or the local game warden that you got his number, that he gave you his personal number. Don't call that. Call the tip line. Leave it, because then it's got record. Because a lot of guys, if that guy's eating dinner and he don't want to, he's like, I'm not going to mess with it. And he gets a call. He's going to tell you what you want to hear, and then it's never going to go no farther.
You know, and you know, here's the thing. Here, there's 8 people sitting here, 9 people, you know, that are very, very good at what they do, and they're very involved in the catfish community. They've got a lot of knowledge. They've got a lot of passion. They've got a lot of experience. And again, the suggestion to figure out how to make this work is challenging. And
absolutely.
That's you know, that's what people have to realize and understand, is that this is not an easy solution. This is a very, very challenging problem that has to be, you have got to come up with some creative solutions that everybody can live with. And it's not easy. It's not easy, because everybody's got to walk away from the table at least, you know, having some portion of a win and a loss. I mean, JR, you know, Ryan, you're both guys. You're on the water all the time. I mean, do you see enforcement out there like you used to, or you see it the way you expect it to be?
No, they're way understaffed. I mean, every department I know of in all the states around us has had severe cutbacks in the last few years. I mean, they're outmanned. I mean, we have a huge county. I think we have 2 agents for the
So
whole.
what is
county.
that you're seeing mainly? Kentucky and then Missouri, Illinois.
Yeah, I mean Missouri, Illinois. I haven't been checked, and I couldn't tell you. It's probably been 8 years since I've been checked by Illinois. I did get checked by Missouri this year, but that was maybe one of 2 times I've ever been checked on the river by them. Now, when we come into the ramp, they'll be there every once in a while, but it's rare. I mean, they're understaffed.
Dave,
I
you're on
did
the
have
water a
commercial
lot.
guys
What are
from
your thoughts?
Ohio.
Well, for one, awareness is key. For instance, TWRA. Okay, I seen them actually promote a pay lake somewhere in Middle Tennessee. They promoted it on their website. But what TWRA does not realize probably is they're thinking, oh, cool, a pay lake. But do they realize there's 300 other pay lakes up here that's coming to get the same fish? Do they realize there's Facebook? We've seen how this sport has exploded on the catch and release side, or catfishing in general, whether it's catch and release or not. We see how it is exploded. And TWRA does not realize, hey, I've got 100 and something thousand subscribers. We've got Facebook pages with 100,000 members. Okay. What they're not seeing the big picture like we're seeing it, and it's the sustainability of it. And the fact that, okay, we've got this number of pay lakes now. This is going to continue to grow because when this guy sees this guy making money, it's going to keep growing. And this is not sustainable. And they're not seeing this whole big picture. They're not seeing all of this.
Yeah.
They do not realize this huge explosion that's happened. Yeah, they're getting some calls from our local guys. Where's our fish at? And here again, we've got a new group of I've been fishing this river since the 90s. It's a totally different river. Well, these guys that are working TWRA, they might think this is the new normal, that this is fine. But my videos prove that all my biggest fish come from getting way away from here where all this is taking place. I can go to James River, and within 3 trips, I've caught several fish over 40. My biggest is 60. I can't do that here. I can't do that in Watts Bar. I can't even do that in Chickamauga or Nickajack in just 3 trips.
Why Watts Bar? They don't have commercial fishing on Watts Bar, correct?
I actually heard Mr.
Do they or do they not?
The guy up in Ohio, he said they came to Watts Bar, and he said it was the worst lake he'd ever went to. And yes, they do bust guys. And they busted guys in Watts Bar with commercial fishing. Yeah, here again, just
every time I'm there, I pull up, probably 5 different lines halfway across the river.
Right. Yeah. It gets fished, not legally.
Yeah.
It's like,
they're taking them for their local fish fries.
Not necessarily. That's
what people say all the time. It's
right. Yeah. TWRA told me. See. Fort Loudon had commercial fishing banned, and that's why it was so great. They banned commercial fishing like in the 70s, and here I am in the 1990s just enjoying this fishing. I'm thinking.
I think everybody's got to realize though too, commercial fishing is on a downward trend. Catfish is one of the top 10 consumable fish in the world, but 80% of the consumed catfish is farm raised now. So
Right.
the commercial fishing that goes on now is not so much for consumption. It's for these pay lakes. It's
Right.
for pet food. It's for everything but consumption. So, I think that the states have to realize what these trophy fish are being caught for. And I think eliminating or at least setting the krill limit. In other words, if the commercial guys follow the same rules that they set for recreational anglers, 1 over 34, et cetera, it would make things a whole lot, healthier, I think, all the way around for most of these
It's
fisheries.
totally unfair. It's totally unfair to us locals that have to deal with not good fishing here. So some private lake up in Ohio can make their millions of dollars.
Yeah. Well,
The people of this state should have more say so than they do,
yeah,
or at least as much. It should be a shared thing, but we're getting the crap end of the deal.
We were in the Mississippi back in, was it August ish, and seeing guys putting in Missouri, fishing in Mississippi with Kentucky plates.
Putting in a Columbia bottom.
Putting in a Columbia bottom. Big tanks in the middle of their and of course they're Kentucky. And I looked at Justin and they just follow you everywhere they go. They love you.
Pulling trout lines, 50-pounders right in front of us. But it hadn't been on the water 5 minutes. I was like, oh my God, I'm like a magnet to these trash.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they're here all the time.
Yeah.
Well, we've had them come drop lines right in front of us, like just pull up behind, down river and upriver of our setup and put nets out.
Well, again,
what
needs to be accomplished is realistic, suggestions, realistic solutions that state commissions, DNRs, legislature can get their head around on.
It's no transportation of live fish across state lines, harsher penalties. And
I think that's a paramount. I think that's a paramount regulation for any state is prohibit the transportation of live fish within the state.
What state wants their natural resource taken to another state for profit? I mean, who's on board with that? Why would we even consider it?
Well, didn't Tennessee have that at one time?
No, in Missouri, I mean, I think our conservation would be all for it, but we have a cooperative on the Mississippi with Illinois, and I'll just say the Illinois, they have some really good fisheries biologists that work there. I've met several of them. They know who they are. But as far as the higher ups, it's corrupt as it could get for commercial fishing in Illinois, and we won't do anything until we have that cooperative. They won't do anything until we agree on both parties on each side, because it goes by the stricter, but for some reason, I don't know if Illinois has some damaging pictures of some higher ups in Missouri conservation or what it is, but they're not going to do anything until Illinois gets on board with it. And I don't see that happening until a few key people there get the boot.
Glenn, I think what you're looking for on that suggestion you're talking about, enforcement's the only way we're going to get anything done. It's got to be enforced. If we can do anything, we probably need to raise some money for them so that they can do some enforcement.
Yeah, but the money we're talking, Steve, is significant. I mean, it's significant.
There's a lot of catfishermen.
Yeah, and there's a lot of companies who make really good money on catfishing too.
And there's a lot of pay lakes that make good money, and that's why it suggested that
that money doesn't always go to the pay lakes when they're doing all this private stuff. It's kept private. It's kept.
The only money they're getting from the pay lakes is the Dingle Johnson money, and that's it.
Start up a GoFundMe, Glenn, on the ACA for purchasing a lobbyist and somebody to help draft bills and see what happens.
That brings up a good point, right? I mean, and Jeremy and I were talking the other day. And Jeremy has a URL that he established. Jeremy, what was it? The
domain, Catfish Conservation Foundation. I was going to do something before I met.
So
what
we're going to propose? Yeah, what we're going to propose to do is to start a specific fund, which we can run through our 501c3, so the donations are tax deductible, and there'll be a complete committee of anglers that are going to manage it. We're not going to touch it. We're going to just simply facilitate it.
It needs to go here, there. But it's going to be somebody else doing it, a group, a panel.
Right.
Visible.
Right. Wide open for everybody to see. And I think it's a great idea, and we'll get that set up here within the next 30 to 60 days. So if there's going to be money that's going to be donated for that kind of thing, for regulation, enforcement, whatever the case might be, that committee will decide on where that money is going to go, how it's going to be used, and it's going to be up to the catfish community, whether it be an angler or whether it be industry leaders, to get the thing properly funded. Now, once it's funded, the other thing that can be done is you can hire a grant writer, and you can take a $25,000 fund and hire a grant writer that can bring in $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000. So it's, how it's going to be managed, how the funds are going to be used will be up to that committee. But again,
Well, I
it's
mean,
going to take a whole lot more than a few $100,000 to handle the regulation enforcement of some of these states that need it so badly.
I mean,
I think if we ask somebody like Chris, who would be a valuable resource to ask, I mean, where would the best bang for our buck go if we're trying to get in front of people who actually make the legislation? I mean, getting somebody as far as a lobbyist or somebody who to write bills or grants, because these guys, I don't think they write their own bills. I would imagine we have somebody on our side draft something up, get it in front of them, get the right amount of votes, and get something done. I mean, Chris, am I wrong on that, or?
No, you're right. And we have our own departments in every state that write all our legislation. We go to them with an idea, they research it and put something together. That's why I said early on, I think befriending some state representatives and some senators that understand conservation is very important right now. It's a threefold problem. You got to have enforcement. You got to update these old laws and regulations, and then you got to update the fines. It's all three of those things have to happen. And still, you're not going to get everyone, but finding somebody in your state that's involved in the legislative process and get them up to speed on what's going on and let them understand the resources. And they're out there. There's a thing called the Sportsman's Caucus. That's a national caucus that's in every state. And those guys would be interested, some of them for sure,
Sure. Well, I think the biggest bang, just me personally, for if we were going to put something like this together, would be to attack Ohio and go after the physical pay lakes themselves and try to get legislation passed to govern, how many fish they're putting in. If they had a lake that could sustain the amount of fish, we could put, your lake can hold this many fish, and as long as you can stock this many fish per year, it doesn't take away their business. I mean, obviously, it's going to cut back on the amount of fish people catch because there actually is going to be food in there to sustain the fish they're putting in there. But it's not killing their business. I mean, these people still have some place to go to open mouth kiss their sister, that kind of thing. But I'm saying, we'll basically just be putting on a system where they're regulated. And I think, doing that there is kind of, it's the epicenter of where all these things are at. So, I mean, that's the biggest bang for the buck. We go right after Ohio. We get them to regulate the pay lakes themselves and what they can stock and what they can't, the numbers, and keep it all above the board. I mean, what they're doing right now, where they're treating it like an unlimited resource where they just stock as many fish as they need. And once the ones die, I mean, that's not sustainable, and it's not good for any of the fisheries that they're going out and harming. So, I mean, if we just focus on that state and put all of our funds that we're getting together for that, I think that's a great start.
I agree with Ryan, because there's basically there's all the data in the world right here of what happens if you do not do anything. The numbers that the Ohio River has, depleted down to, the conditions that the pay lakes are running under. All your data and information's here in Ohio, where, it may not have started here, but it has definitely got a strong presence in Ohio. And, all your information is here to be pulled up. And for all the other, fisheries in the country that, if they don't get ahead of it, these numbers and these type of situations is what you're going to be looking forward to. And so I agree with Ryan, it started
we
here.
Need everybody on here. So let me make this suggestion. Let's say that this fund is established and it gets funded. To Ryan's point, which I think is a good one, is actually to create the legislation, to write to the legislation, have somebody write the legislation that we think works best to regulate the pay lakes, or anything else for that matter, for these states, so that we can take this legislation, this regulation, which to take it to the various states, to the DNRs, et cetera, for consideration, and to start a program, to publicize this new regulation throughout the states that absolutely need to have it in place. That you can go to television, stations throughout the region, and you can and have a conversation with them and let them understand, why this regulation is so badly needed. Let them review it. Let them go out and see the abuse that the pay lakes, are doing. Earlier, you guys addressed getting this problem known. We talked about Joe Rogan, et cetera. And I think that local news may be a good answer, for that. If somebody gets out there and they do an expose on these pay lakes, it might be a good starting point.
I feel that
people don't watch them though, Glenn. People do not. I mean, I've done this for 12 years. I can put something out on YouTube talking about pay lakes and conservation, and I get crickets as far as views.
Yep.
But you how to tie a hook, you're gonna get 1,000 views.
Yeah, guys.
So
I mean, and we've experienced it as well. I mean, when you start talking about conservation efforts and to get people behind it, there's all sorts of people that'll point the finger and say this has got to be done. But when it comes time to do it, it falls off dramatically. And
10 years ago, I think around 2013, I told Kentucky DNR how to, because it's the same thing back then. We don't have the resources. I kind of mentioned to them, like deer hunting, you have to buy deer tags. And I don't even know what they cost anymore. I don't deer hunt anymore, but if you want to harvest a deer, you got to have deer tags. It could be the same way with these trophy fish. If these commercial guys want to stock their pay lakes, make them pay an extra fee, and that fee goes to it, but they're only allowed so many fish per year.
Kind of like alligator.
But again, you're talking about a regulation. You're talking about enforcement, and that's the challenge. That's
the enforcement is if they got money and they weren't interested in listening to that. There's a revenue stream right there for extra DNR.
They get money.
Yeah, I mean that's great, but again that's a regulation, and they've got to put people in place to enforce enforce that. And
back to what Chris said a while ago, what Chris said a while ago is friend some senators or commissioners and stuff like that. I had the commissioner Rich Storm from Kentucky in my lobby, I don't know, 6 months ago, and was talking about this stuff. And what he told me to do, if I wanted to get anything done, was befriend these type of people, take them turkey hunting, smooze them or whatever. I don't need no more friends. I'm not looking for that. I'd like for you all to pay attention to what I'm looking for, without having to build a friendship with people, and it's going to be a fake friendship at that. If you know what I mean. I mean, I don't know how to turkey hunt.
It's relation, and that's what the ACA has been doing for a number of years. I mean, we've established really good relationships with a number of government, bodies and directors, and then around the country. And that's what it's all about. It's relationship building, and it's being able to have, conversations regarding the problems in a realistic manner. Which we're able to do. I mean, it's.
You were talking about getting money involved and such. And Chris may be able to answer his question better, but I know just from speaking to local game wardens why it happened. There was no lobbyists. There was nobody pushing for the skipjack for Alabama, the new rule passed. The reason it passed was 2 or 3 individuals, mainly at Wheeler Dam, that people kept calling on and kept going to. They wrote them a ton of tickets. It was it was one of them, we're tired of going to this place because of the resource that they're abusing. We're just going to keep lowering this down. Nobody was on the front. I was at the meeting 3 weeks ago. Me and Brad Lell were the only 2 there to talk about anything to do with fresh water. There was nobody. It was strictly they were tired of going there and kept seeing we were calling hotlines. People were talking online about, I've got 600 skips. I'm taking back to Ohio. Who wants to buy them? I'm going to pay for my trip, go to Alabama. I'm going to sell skips on the way home. I'm going to drop them off at a pay lake. And it wasn't, nobody was on the front lines, as far as I know, saying, hey, we lowered to 50. It was strictly lowered because they saw the abuse and got tired of people calling and dealing with the same, really one individual, but there were several that kept one main one, but there were several that kept screwing up or abusing the resource, and it didn't take a bunch of people. That law, we talked to them after the meeting was over, and it's like, oh yeah, this is happening. We're tired of
Alabama is usually really on top of things. At the same time, they put the regulation in for the 100, and I mean they already realized that there was a problem, and obviously the problem continued. So they took the bull by the horns and they reduced it even further. Which
I don't see how we couldn't do the same with something like this. You talk about regulation and stuff and money, and I'm a big I don't want to ever. Someone said something the other day to me about it. I said, I don't plan to gain $1 out of all making this awareness. I don't want any money. I don't need the money. In fact, my money doesn't come from fishermen. My best money is taking people that's never done this before. So, I mean, I'm not here to gain anything, and I don't want to be a part of anything that would require money as far as that goes. And like I said, Skipjack, that had nobody on the front lines. That passed on its own strictly from abuse. I don't see how this.
Thank you.
But in defense of a few people that are in here, I mean, you've got, people like Steve Douglas and Justin and Jeremy and others that have really put forth the effort as far as to build awareness and to go after regulation changes for years. And, they've moved the needle, but it's always just so little. Just, you take what you can get. But it's such a challenge. I mean, it's just such a challenge.
So since we've already got so many folks in here that have already, leaps and bounds ahead of most of the people. So we've got chat, a lot of people fired up. Everyone's motivated right now. The social influences are motivated right now. What can you guys tell, for all the folks that are still here and watching and listening? What is the first step of action that somebody like myself or anybody in chat should take if they want to make a difference? Like, who is the first person they should contact? Where should they go after that? Like, if anybody here wants to make a difference, what is their best,
Well, I think Chris could probably answer that best as a state legislator. I mean, he knows the process better than any of us.
I'll be glad to answer that. So the first thing you want to do is call your local DNR and let them know about the problem and that you're interested in it, right? So then the next thing, I'm going back again, third time, befriend someone in the state. Relationships go a long way in this kind of situation. I mean, a long way. Build your relationship with somebody and let them know. But telephones and calls and emails go a long way. Yeah. Repetitive telephone calls and emails.
Well, to that answer right there, we did that last year or a couple of years ago to somebody. Justin may be able to remember this as well. But he actually shut us down. He said, if I get another email from anybody, we ain't listening to nothing you have to say. We had to shut it down. You remember that, Justin?
Yeah.
I don't remember who exactly that was, but it was one of somebody.
It was Kentucky. It was the commissioners. They got blowed up. But I think, that was that's when we kind of put a generic, I mean, it wasn't generic. It was an email together. We made it to where you could copy and paste it on there. We made it to where it was easy.
Right.
Try to get more people to do it. And I mean, they actually, in that situation, they did it. They blowed them up, but and I'm sure Chris would be a good one to answer this. I think more of a, I think they'd rather see, instead of like the chain emails or whatever, each individual writing their own words down.
Right.
And saying in their own words what they see, what their problem is, and stuff like that, instead of like the chain emails where they go out and everybody gets the same email 106 times each.
Right.
Right.
And this is to Steve's point, guys. I'm looking at my phone here. I don't know what you all are doing on your own, like screens and whatnot, but conservation talk is not popular.
Yeah.
The people that are passionate about it, we'll talk about it, we'll share it, they'll share it, their friends will share it. But that's something else you got to share, and you got to talk to people, and you got to make them aware. A lot of people don't understand this and don't know this. There's 130 people watching this live right now. That's it. 130. I've seen more than 130 comments on JR's one post. Where are they at?
Actually, no. There's 831 that are watching.
Okay, sorry. That's awesome. Thank you.
Well, and I got a question for
I
Chris.
just see
Better
the number
stay in your
pop up.
lane.
Maybe that's through over here.
But I don't mean to contradict what you're seeing, but I may be seeing something different
Right
than
on.
you are.
That's
Hey, he's used to being proved wrong.
Wow. Sorry.
you may only be getting one channel's numbers. You know,
Good. Yeah, and I said,
Glenn's
I don't
getting
know
to
if
see
you guys-
everybody's channels combined.
Glenn's
Yeah,
probably
I'm
seeing
seeing
everything.
I'm seeing everything. Believe me, I'm seeing everything. I mean, I'm seeing the chat, roll up.
The
I mean,
chat's blowing up.
I don't know why people, choose to be so negative and to, on certain things. I mean, there's really no place for it. I mean, everybody here is trying to do the best they can to move the sport forward. And then you get people that try to bash the efforts of one person or an organization or another. It's ridiculous, and that's the problem with social media. I mean, social media is a double-edged sword. You can use it for very positive things, but I'll tell you what, somebody gets a bug up their ass and they want to just bury somebody, and they use social media to do it. And I've always encouraged people: you got a problem, pick up a phone. Don't air it out on social media. It's the worst. It's the worst place in the world to do it, because chances are you're wrong, and you can resolve things with a quick 5-minute phone call.
Well, Greg, I know you do quite a bit at the Catfish Conference and promoting that. But we had 12,000 people from all over the United States this year come.
Congratulations! It was a heck of an expo this year.
Yeah, but and I had Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio DNR all in the same place. I guess these 12,000 need to maybe spend some time with them, or I can give somebody that wants to do it off to the side, like somebody like Justin. And I think they've done it before, and they found out that it didn't work that well. But here, 5 years later, it may work, because we've got a whole new group of people. The people that I promoted to 10 years ago are either out of it or they know about it. But you've got new people into this industry that don't know about it, that if somebody wanted to come to the Catfish Conference and set up a booth and let everybody know and take petitions or whatever, I'll give that up. However we can make this work.
Well, I think I think there's some good ideas. I like the idea about this fund and establishing that and the committee to run that. I think that's a really good start. I like the idea about putting together a kind of a legislative proposal that can be proposed to a number of states, regarding the issues we've discussed. There's the former chairperson of Tennessee's commission, a gal by the name of Angie Box. I've got all the respect in the world for her. She had made a suggestion, a while back, and I think her suggestion has got merit. I think it still does. Is to have a symposium, a meeting, and to invite the commission members or legislative members or the fisheries chiefs from various states within a region and bring them together and have these conversations to discuss uniform regulations with the change in catfishing, the popularity of catfishing. I think that
It's funny that you say that, Glenn, because I invited the Catfish Symposium, that thing that meets every 10 years.
Yeah,
I have invited them, and I had a meeting on the phone with them and about 4 other people involved in it. They didn't want nothing to do with it. As soon as I said conservation and the pay lakes, they kind of pretty much cut me off. And
I think what you have to do is you have to kind of entice them, into a situation where it's kind of a bit of a retreat. So if all of a sudden, and Chris, tell me, again, I look to Chris because he's in it. He's in it every day. If we had this thing at the pyramid and everybody got themselves a terrific suite in the pyramid, and we had events and things like that they could participate with, with their wife or family members. Whereas, 2 or 3 days that they're there enjoying themselves for the most part. But we have an afternoon where we sit down and we discuss this stuff, and then they can continue on with what they do. They do this in the medical field with pharmaceuticals, etc. So, I mean, you'd have to make it enticing for them to.
Well, I
be
did
somewhere.
offer them hotels. I told them I'd put them up, but it became
Again, I'm just throwing it out there. I still think it's a good idea. It's how you present it and how it works. Chris, am I right in my assumption? I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like you know more about that than I do. I think we need a uniform piece of legislation that we can introduce in state, and we can say at that point, this same bill passed Tennessee, this same bill passed Alabama. This is the same thing they done here. Then it goes better. A lot of people don't want to hear that, hey, this is something we're doing here and nobody else has ever done it. So I think once it's like a pyramid, a domino effect, right? So once you do it, then more people start doing it. So I think we need to just put some time in figuring out what we want to do and how we want to do it, and then go that way. And I think if we do it through the legislative process, it'll be uniform. Doing it through the conservation process, I'm not sure. Through the regulation process, I'm not sure what you'll end up with.
My concern with the legislative process, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, or anybody else for that matter that may know better, but the legislators look to the commissions and to the biologists and things like that for backup as far as, is this really needed? Am I correct? I mean, if we don't have the backup.
So they won't look to them, they won't call them, but if the conservation comes to them and say, hey, we don't want you to pass this, we don't like this. Well, yeah, that would be a negative effect. But, I don't think conservation is going to get involved in when we're trying to help conservation. You know what I'm saying? So it may be different in other states, but in my state, it will not be that way. We're just trying to give them more tools for them to work with,
So the suggestion is to more or less bypass the commissions and go right to the legislative process.
The commissions might be something you want to inform them also, but the way that, that's what I do is make laws. So that's the direction I'm going to go.
Okay.
Because legislation it trumps regulation, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah. The law is the law.
The legislators are going to go to the commissioners, who then might ask the biologists what their opinion of it is. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the legislators. And
some of them will, most of them will not. Most of them don't even know nothing about the conservation board, and they're not going to fool with them. Unless the conservation comes to the state house and says, hey, we don't want this, there will not be an issue.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Also, when you're passing legislation, a lot of the legislation is bundled. Am I correct, Chris? So you have a lot of legislative issues that are approved as a whole. I forget what do you call that?
No, we don't do that on state level, as far as I know. They do that in D.C. They do omnibus bills, but no, we don't do that.
Right. Yeah, you don't do it statewide.
No.
At least not in Alabama.
I got a question for Chris. So I agree with Ryan. If we only got so much resource or can only work with so much resource, we need to go after the heaviest hitters. So like in Ohio, so I'm being told in Ohio, nobody's over to regulate pay lakes. One's saying it's the DNR. The DNR.
Hey, can I interrupt you just a minute?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you just a minute?
Yep.
Hey, I think whenever y'all get to the point of ending this broadcast, I think we need to stay on the line and just have a talk amongst ourselves for a few minutes.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So, but who would I go to find out or to see who
actually does
regulate them, or if no one is there and it is a small business that fell through the cracks, how do we go about getting that regulated?
To the legislator who's going to propose it to the legislation. You have to write the legislation.
Right.
It's got to be accepted, obviously, by that legislator or group of legislators to be able to propose it to the legislation. Am I correct, Chris?
No, well, that's why we say if we do a uniform bill, you don't have to write nothing. We just take the same bill to multiple states.
Right, but I'm talking about the initial bill. The initial
Yeah.
bill has to be written and approved, I would think, by the legislators that are going to sign on to the thing.
I
Initially.
would, I would imagine money well spent would be a lobbyist, a lawyer, and somebody to draft that legislation.
It's a lot of money.
We can get our own legislation drafted. We have our department that drafts legislation. So, and if you have someone like me on board, you don't need a lobbyist. So
You'll be our lobbyist, Chris?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'll be glad to help you.
Chris works cheap out here too.
Yeah, and so here's what we do. We do something like this in Alabama, then I'll go with you to Tennessee or wherever, and I'll help you find someone up there to do it up there. You know.
I know there's two guys on here that probably take you out fishing too.
That's right.
Sounds like a great plan too. Probably not everybody on here would.
I don't know. I'm probably not coming up to Jeremy's area. I'm still waiting on my skipjack rod.
Yeah, you don't want to come up to this area to go fishing. Go to Dave's, Ryan's, Steve's, JR, anywhere but the Ohio
I have
River.
my own. I'll be back up there next week.
It's worth the skipjack rod he's got. I tell you that.
Already saving money, Glenn.
You come up here, it better be for deer.
Yeah,
this is kind of a different approach, and I don't know the pros or cons of this, but what would be the benefit, or possibly not a benefit, of reclassifying catfish as a game fish?
Some states already have that.
Yeah,
Indiana it is.
It is in Missouri.
Conservation.
Again, you have to take into consideration there is commercial fishing of catfish for consumption. Catfish is a challenge because of it's such a consumable.
Everybody that says to make it a game fish and it's done, you can't commercial. That's not true. The commercial fish walleye in Lake Erie.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that Ohio does allow commercial fishing on.
Missouri is going to be an easy state to win as long as we can get rid of Illinois. We don't allow commercial fishing on the Missouri River. It's just the Mississippi River bordered by Illinois. I mean, there's a lot of states that would jump on board with this. We just
we're told that all the time.
I love Chris's idea of once we get one state in line, especially the rivers are bordering several states, in any given region. I don't know what West Virginia has gone differently, but I can tell you that around here, West Virginia seems to have a very strong presence on the water. I don't know how many times I've been on the water and I've seen West Virginia and Ohio. I've never seen, and I've fished a while, and I've never seen a Kentucky wildlife officer on the river, ever. Not one.
Yep.
West Virginia, I'm telling you, it's hard to go out and not see somebody out doing something.
Well, that's good.
I don't know what the difference is for West Virginia, but their efforts are definitely, very high.
Hey, I got a question for Ryan too. Okay, so you're from St. Louis. You spent a lot of time on the water, many years. And how have you seen the increase in commercial pressure throughout the years?
I have, yeah. I mean, I brought this up to the Missouri Conservation in 2008, and I had 6 people show up. That was back in the BOC days. There were a lot of the people on the board there that I spoke to didn't even realize what trophy lakes were. They didn't even know about them.
Yeah,
we had one in this area back then, and most all of the the pay lakes here were commercially or farm raised catfish.
Yeah,
lakes. No, they were channel cat lakes. We had one that was, and they flew under the radar, but they didn't even know about them. But yeah, over the years, especially in the last, I would say 10, and they're getting better. There's more of them. Their technology with fish finders and things like that are more advanced. These guys are running huge set lines under the water that they're using drag hooks to catch.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're just a lot more proficient at catching them. They're targeting big fish. They're not using, they'll use the gill nets and things like that in the wintertime when the water's low. But I mean, they can go out there even in high water and set those set lines with those basically big trout lines underneath the water that they've got GPS and use a drag line to hook them up. And I don't know how many fish I've seen over 80 pounds come in their boat just in the last 2 years. Yeah. And they're fishing right where we're fishing.
There's a lot. James,
they're watching us. We're watching them, but they're watching everything we're posting.
And one of the heaviest hitters, his his holding ponds are down there, and they're in Illinois,
I know there's holding ponds all over. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they, 90. I'm gonna say, honestly, I'm gonna say 70% is coming from that Chester, Cape Girardeau area, St. Louis. I mean, that's where a lot of them's coming from, and that rumor that a lot of them's coming from, because they always say, oh, they're invasive. We're getting them from Maryland.
Yeah.
That's a lie.
I know.
I mean, there's very, very few fish that's coming from there. And I mean, I'm not saying there ain't any, because there is, but there are very few. And it's just it's crazy the amount of fish are taken out. And I knew, because it's like I think Chris was saying earlier, or one of you guys, throughout the years of regulations, everything's 20 years ago we was fishing with pistol grip and Zebco 33s and stuff,
Right.
and there wasn't none of this stuff. And then
Right.
The regulations just they haven't kept up.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you're going to sustain a fishery, you have to evolve the regulations with the fishery and the technology. I mean, they didn't think they could overfish the damn ocean for red snapper, but they did. I mean, they've made a great comeback, but that's a long-lived fish, just like the catfish. Yeah. I mean, we have to be proactive instead of reactive, and that's what I think we need to convey to all of these state agencies and conservation agencies, is that you need to be proactive and get ahead of it before there is a severe problem like the Ohio River's experiencing right now. I mean, we've all seen our fishes decline.
Yeah, Ryan, to your point, the challenge is that when you start talking about a problem, when you start talking about solutions, is that they're going to come back and I've seen it. I've seen the questions asked. Well, do you have proof of the problem?
That's nonsense, Glenn. I mean, there's already proof of the problem. Like the instance I gave with
looking for the scientific. They're looking for the scientific data.
In the Ohio River. I mean, but what I'm telling you is that we need to be proactive before there is a problem, and then we need to be reactive. That's the stance we need to take. Not can we prove there's a problem? I mean, you can't prove there's a problem until somebody looks into it. I mean, how do you look into it without in a river system like the Mississippi River? They can't even keep an accurate survey on. I mean, they can put collars on these things, done limited studies, but I mean, we know very little about the biology and of river catfish. I mean, we don't know.
And a lot of
we have some
the states are the same way. A lot of the states are the same way. They don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You don't have 5 and 10 years for them to do a study, because in 5 and 10 years, the Mississippi
could be
just like Cincinnati Pool, Ohio.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm saying is our stance needs to be proactive instead of reactive.
Right. I agree.
Agreed. But I mean, I'm just kind of going by some of the hurdles that we've had to, at least we try to overcome, is that when we talk to a state, about regulation changes, they say, well, show us where the problem is. Do you have the scientific data? I mean, no, we've got anglers that have been fishing it for 30 years that tell us that, they're not catching this, or this is a problem, or they're seeing abuse by the commercial, side of things, or whatever.
But who's saying this, Glenn? The people who are supposed to be doing the research?
Yeah.
We're telling them there's a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and they want to know what they want to see the problem, and they don't have the state may not have the resources to identify the problem. We don't have it. We don't have it. To do a scientific study on just a small fishery, hundreds and thousands of dollars, if not millions.
Right.
So it really is. It's a challenge, and I'm not trying to be negative on this.
No,
I'm just trying to be realistic as far as when you approach a state to change a regulation, a significant regulation. Again, they've got constituents that are not just the recreational guy. They got the commercial guys, et cetera. They're going to get pushback from every side. So the data's got to be there for them to be able to support legislation to move it forward. Most of the time, I'm not saying all the time, but most of the time.
I agree. It's an uphill battle in that regards, but at the same time, I mean, I think you're like I said, you're better off sticking with the fact that what's being done is fundamentally wrong in a lot of ways with you know,
Yeah,
the wanton
it
waste and no regulation on the amount of fish that they can or can't stock, and the fact that they're skimming dead fish and nobody's eating things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's where you go after first, and from there, I think we obviously need some kind of studies done on these fish. But I mean, I can tell you that our fishery has definitely declined over the last 10 years significantly.
Yeah.
Well, I think most fisheries have declined because of the popularity of catfishing overall. I mean, catfishing has grown tremendously in the last 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten phenomenally better at what we do and what we know, and we're catching a lot less fish than we did when we started.
Part of our downfall in Tennessee River it's more of we're the problem. It's fished constantly by tons of people. Part of the problem is people are moving in droves to a point, you know, down here because the fishing's good, because where they're from, the fishing sucks because of pay lakes and stuff to, you know, have taken that resource from them. They come here. You know, I'm blessed with one of the I'd say top 5 fisheries in the country, and I'm already considering, you know, part-time going to Louisiana to run charters just so I can feel like I don't have to kill myself trying to stay on fish because so many people are coming here because where they're from sucks. You know, Jesus, it's, you know, it's not hard to have 100 and 200 boat tournaments down here, and people are coming for weeks at a time because the fishing's that good, and it makes it tough on all of us because where they're from, fishing sucks.
Well,
you know,
I can tell you, JR, a lot of people in this chat have been going down to Wheeler for a lot of years, and your fishery has declined as well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt.
There's no honey holes anymore. we know about every one of them.
It's not. I mean, I'm sure Gunnersville is probably a little bit of a gem for y'all, but Wheeler's not a shadow of it. So.
Oh yeah. It's not my go-to, and it's, you know, considered by a lot to be one of the best. And I'm like, y'all can have that, you know. But I'm considering Louisiana move just so I can stay on fish, you know, catch my expectations and less pressure. You know, and I shouldn't have to.
Want to go down there too.
And join the crowd. I'll be there first of the year.
Yeah,
I'm leaving tomorrow to go down to Louisiana to fun fish for the next 5 days, and then I'm going offshore fishing for a few days.
Oh man,
what are you going fishing for, JR?
We're doing tuna, swordfish, snapper for 2 days, but then I'm taking my boat. I'm already loaded up and ready to go. Pretty much. We're going down to Venice and just catfishing for, I think, 4 days. May do some inshore. I know the place good enough. I can go. You have a crazy fishery down there, and you know it. You know, is it one of those get while the getting's good? Is it?
Probably.
I don't know. I know what my water's turned into with a ton of people here, and I love the change of going down there, and it's just. Nobody cares about catfish down there. They literally laugh at you when I pull up on my boat. They're like, "You drove all the way here to catch catfish?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." I know.
To do that in Alabama.
Do what?
They used to be like that in Alabama.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of the problem. I believe, you know, when I first started years ago, I think I heard Catfish Dave say that on one of his videos. People out in North Carolina that didn't have a problem wasn't interested in what I had to say. It was my region that was affecting me, but it wasn't affecting everybody else around the country. Now I think people are starting to see, you know, like Catfish Dave said, you know, they're going to North Carolina, South Carolina to get these things, and it's now affecting them. So, you know, they're finally seeing what we've been fighting for the last 12, 15 years.
Yeah. Steve, how do we get JR, Steve, how do we get more companies involved?
You got to have a passion for it. I mean, the only reason I'm involved is I got a passion.
You got a passion.
What I do.
You were at the same meeting the first time I seen Glenn there, and Justin, and you know, I mean, that wasn't my first meeting, but that was one that first one I seen Glenn at. And like I said, that meant a lot.
Well, a lot of folks you get on the internet, and like right now, there's a big rush about this pay lake thing. I mean, everybody's saying something about it. But if we was to say, hey, we got a little organization going, we need everybody here 2 weeks from now at this certain spot. They'll say, yeah, I'll be there. But when it's time to be there, they're not going to be there. And then you ask them about, oh, I had to work. Well, I had to take off work. I mean, just because I own my own business don't mean I can't, take off work.
The time's going to come that they're all going to be called again.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to need them.
Okay,
I
got another.
I don't want to try to put blame on anybody for this. I think it's going to take the community.
Help. We're going to need it.
I got another. I mean, it's kind of a little off the subject, but it ain't really. So, in the Mississippi River, Ohio River, a lot of the tributaries, they got an Asian carp problem. Kentucky wants them gone. Illinois wants them gone. I seen Illinois is stocking carp or stocking gar to try to, whether it's really to combat the Asian carp. I've seen them say that, it's going to be, they want them on the front lines. Well, from what I've seen, I believe catfish is the number one predator of the Asian carp. Why wouldn't they want to leave them in the waters?
Well, we brought that up 8 years ago, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ron Brooks didn't want nothing to do. I think Ron Brooks had a little interest in that fish house down there.
Yeah, I believe, because Ron used to always tell me, he'd say, Justin, we're here to sustain a fishery, not to sustain a trophy fishery.
Yeah.
And he said, as long as the numbers are good, he goes, you guys want us to sustain a trophy fishery, and he goes, that's not what our jobs are. Our job is to make sure that the numbers are there, whether they're 8 inches or whether they're 80 pounds. He said, but yet they're stocking Florida strain bass in Kentucky Lake, by the millions.
For the bass anglers.
Yeah. But yet their job, so I think the Asian, because there's so many, there's so many ways you can go about it. I've got pictures, Steve's seen them. I'm sure Asian carp ending up in pay lakes all over, not just one pay lake. They're ending up all over. How they getting there? That's supposed to be a fish killed on site. You know what I mean? I got a video of a channel cat spitting up live Asian carp, literally probably an inch and a half long in a live well. But yet they can haul these fish from rivers that's infested with Asian carp all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that y'all bring up, talking about just Asian carp, what about where they're hauling from, if you're hauling an invasive fish, invasive to me means kill on site.
Yeah.
Why is there keeping it alive, bringing those water contaminants, bacteria, anything? Zebra mussel's a big one. You see signs everywhere. Flush your boats out and everything before you leave, to stop the spread of this. Why are they allowing invasives to come, and the water with those fish come to these places that, are not allowed?
That's a little extra revenue.
And it's coincidentally the Asian carp, all of a sudden make waves of popularity about the time pay lakes really started digging in, taking trophy fish. And it's like, man, we can't keep up with catching these things. It's funny, you're taking the number one damn predator that can eat them.
Yep.
Don't make no sense.
Mm-mm.
You've got places around the country that, where blues and flatheads are considered to be invasive, and like Georgia, for instance. I mean, you catch a flathead in Georgia, you put it back in the water. It's against the regulations. It's in writing. You have to leave it on shore and kill it. Can't put it back in the water. And those are places where, if the pay lake industry wants to start stocking fish, maybe that's where they get them from. I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I think that they need to set up a cottage industry and stop taking from public waters.
There's so many ways to look at what's wrong with it. Not only, I truly believe that these rivers can sustain some commercial fishing. They have for 100 years. They just can't sustain what they're being put to today. And I don't know if they can even sustain half of what they're being put to today. But there's so many different ways to look at, why it's wrong. Whether it be the Asian carp being the number one predator, there's just so many ways to look at it. I just don't understand why because we really had a lot of the DNR when we've talked to them, when we've sat in these commissions. I mean, especially some of the commissioners. Now, I know some of the commissioners, I hate to say this, but they're getting their pockets filled. I mean, they're in there, they're put there to fight this. I mean, I can tell you two of them in Kentucky that they're not there now, which is a great thing. But they was put there to stop that push, And Steve he could tell you, the one stood right there and said that his family friends was commercial fishermen. You know what I mean? And that he had basically, I mean, he was just on and on and on. I mean, it's like how you win on that. How do you fight that kind of battle? You know what I mean?
It's politics. I mean,
it is.
I mean, it's tough. It's a challenge. I mean, just like so much of this is such a challenge. Finding the solution, finding a way to do it. I think that the uniform legislation to introduce is a great start. And I, for one, I'm let's get going. Let's establish that starting point. We've proposed various legislation, that more than willing to introduce, on writing this up. So yeah, I mean it's a good start.
There's more pressure put on these fish nowadays than ever before. What other animal, fish, anything? There ain't another one out there that's got as much pressure put on it. As far as, I mean, the catfish gets hit by the commercial guys, hit by the recreational guys. Then you got all the.
They're exploited. It's not just commercial, but it's exploited.
Yeah, it is,
and it's probably exploited more than any. Wildlife that I can think of.
Noodling off the nest. There's no other fish that gets that much pressure. And now we've added pay lake to it. We've added the popularity to it. We've added on top of it's not sustainable.
No.
And now the Asian carp population is helping decimate that even further. They're getting taken, from the top end and the bottom.
My whole thing is, I mean, I don't like seeing a big fish get killed more than anybody, but I can't stand when something gets taken, killed, and doesn't get eaten.
Exactly.
I mean, as far as regular commercial fishermen, noodlers, stuff like that, somebody riding reel recreational wants to keep a big fish, so be it. If they're within the law, that's fine. But these guys taking them, putting them in these small ponds is a death sentence, and nobody eats them. Man, it gets me, and I can't, it's something that's pissed me off from day one, and I'm pretty fired up about it.
Am I allowed to eat a chocolate chip cookie during this video?
Absolutely.
Unless you got enough for everybody.
For everybody, Dave.
Hey, somebody on here said, I don't remember who it was that I was talking to previously. Trophy deer, big buck. You can grow it in 4, 5, 6 years. You can't do that with the big catfish.
Nope. No, you're talking 10 to 15 years for a trophy catfish.
Well, the sport, like Dave said, the sport has really boomed, and it is guys like myself and Dave that has put it there. But these guys like in Ohio and other places that don't have access to boat, they still watch us. They still want to catch a big fish. Their only outlet is going to be these pay lakes. We need to somehow change their minds, help them see. Take them fishing, something to get them off of that. I mean, all they know is they can go to this pay lake and catch a big fish, and they can be like Catfish Dave.
And that's the only reason that they're using these trophy catfish is to sensationalize the pay lake, so that somebody can come in and catch a big fish, not a big catfish, but a big fish.
Well, I can't blame them really, but
no, I mean it's exciting, but the bottom line is that that's why these trophy catfish are being utilized.
Exactly,
they're being exploited. And they can do the same thing. If they wanted to tag the fish, hey, you catch number 55, you win the pot. They could do it with a 1 pound fish as far as their competitions.
It all reminds me of a brothel. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're going to get some, but look, I mean, you might get AIDS in the process. I mean, have you seen some of these nasty fish?
And you know, the thing is, have you seen the guys taking the pictures with them fish? They're so proud.
They're proud of that
fish
thing.
with them lesions and stuff. I wouldn't want to touch that fish.
Is it required to have a fishing license to fish a Pay Lake in Ohio? Resident, non-resident?
No.
Why is that? Like, that's something y'all need to bring up.
It's a private
That,
pond.
or maybe you're not able to possess a fishing license or hunting license, and that's why you have to go to Pay Lakes. Look at the clientele. I've heard the argument it gives kids and handicap all the chances. The trophy Pay Lakes are not oriented to that. Look who's holding these fish. These are grown-ass men and women that are well capable of fishing just like the rest of us that are choosing these Pay Lakes. You know, why isn't Ohio looking at it from a money standpoint? Why aren't we charging fishing license? I've got to have a fishing license if I fish a pond that's not on my property down here. How they get away with it, you know, because I own it, but if I don't own it, I've got to have one. I don't understand why Ohio is not charging for it. And that may curtail some of the problem, because I can see I've had Pay Lakers and I'm about to start screening calls when they come from Ohio and when booking trips, because I really don't give a shit anymore. I've had them get on the boat, and one of them got on and was real quick. He's like, "Man, let's catch 100-pounder." I was like, "Shit, I'd love to too." You know, I was like, "What's your personal best?" He's like, 97. I said, "What the hell are you doing on a guide trip?" You know, well, I was at Paradise, and I was like, "Are you shitting me? I got to deal with this today." And they were proud, not of the fish, it was of the 10 grand that he made on that fish in an hour, just catching it. And I don't think, you know, you can convince some of them, you know, those that are diehard, let them be diehard about it. I think we need to educate the people that are unknown into this. It's not hard to make this a moral and ethical, you know, issue. Look at these fish going to waste. I wish we could figure out, you know, find that hole in the ground somewhere that they're dumping these 2,000 pounds every 3 weeks.
Trumbull
You know,
County
like
landfill.
you know, if I've got to dispose of deer carcass, you know, like it's got to be disposed on a place where I killed it. Like, can't just take it and throw it in the trash can. I'm not sure why we can, you know, why they're allowing this in Ohio, you know, like, and this is going to waste. If you tell me, you know, most of my commercial guys I talk to down here, they're living as 1 to 5 pounders. They oppose, you know, the Pay Lakes, the commercial fishermen for Pay Lakes. Another edge is to get, you know, you've heard the argument from some of the people on these posts is like, well, my Pay Lakes had fish in there for 5 years. Well, why don't y'all speak up about these same 3, 4, 7 Pay Lakes that are the popular ones for trophy fish and all the wrongdoings that's going on? It could be another edge, because there's some of them like, we don't condone that shit. Like, we don't support them. But, you know, you use the word Pay Lake in general, and it generalizes all of them. There are decent ones, and there are. I'm good with the kids and the handicap, but that's not who's going to these Pay Lakes.
Right. No, Justin a while ago described who's going to Pay Lakes. There was a picture going around 8-10 years ago of a dude sitting there in front of his nice flathead holding a Glock to it.
Yeah.
Now, who brings the Glock to the Pay Lake? Riffraff is what
that. If you ever accidentally walk in the back in one of the back rooms of a Pay Lake store, you'll see that if you think the banks are bad, accidentally walk in the back door.
Yeah. Let me tell you a funny story that happened to me last year when I was going to MRM. For years I have stopped at the Grand Rivers fish house down there and bought buffalo carp for bait. You know, when skipjack's bad. I got run out of there this year. I called them halfway down. I was an hour away. I said, "Y'all got some buffalo?" Yep, we got it. I get there. There's nobody in the office, so I kind of walk in the little alleyway we got, and this dude's in there offloading some fish. And I said, "Hey, I'm going to call to get some buffalo." He said, "We ain't got nothing for you." I said, "Well, I just called. Y'all said you had plenty of them." He said, "You Steve Douglas?" I said, "Yep." He said, "We ain't got nothing for you. Best you do."
What's the name of that company, Steve?
I really don't know. It's the only fish house there at Grand Rivers. And I've been buying there for years and years. Like I said,
Lake City?
Huh?
Was it Lake City?
Yeah. Yep. I don't have anything wrong with the commercial guys as long as they're doing it right. But these dudes that are abusing the big fish, I don't have a use for. But I think somebody said that a commercial fisherman bought that.
They did, Fraley. Yeah. From
Okay.
F&F Pay Lakes. That's who bought it.
Yeah, that dude he wouldn't sell me nothing and run me out of his place.
So let's talk about when you go to a trophy pay lake, these guys, for example, 20, 30, 60, 80 miles of here, right where we're at. Every creek, every little tributary that runs off the Miami, Great Miami, Little Miami, all these tributaries, all these creeks, feeder creeks, they are annihilated from guys going in there throwing cast nets to take 200, 300, 400 pieces of bait per person in a cooler or in their live well bait tank to go fishing for 12, 24 hours on a weekend. They'll spend there. There's a few spots left, but it's hard. I mean, it's been pounded for 25, 30 years that I can remember, these places, and it's only gotten worse. You go to a lot of them, you can't find a piece of bait. You can't find a sunfish, a bluegill, a warmouth, whatever you want to call it.
Smallmouth are gone.
They're taking the bass
everything.
out of those streams, carp, anything like that. And they're using it all for bait in these pay lakes. That's another something that the DNR, that the fisheries people don't even think about that. The bait that's used there, yeah, they buy some frozen skipjack. They might catch some fresh too. But also the waves of people that go to Kentucky Dam, Cumberland City, Wheeler Dam, Wilson Dam, Pickwick, all on down in waves. These guys are going down and taking more than they're allowed to bring them back up to either sell them or to stock up on them. And that's a lot of people and a lot of damage to the fishery for skipjack, just in general, or moon eye. Chris, I don't know what you can talk about or say what Alabama's doing, but I believe it's a great thing on skipjack and on bait. Can't hear you.
My intent is to keep Alabama's resources in Alabama, and if you guys want to come down, catch the limit of skipjack yourself, that's fine. But taking skipjack out by the thousands, I'm totally against that.
Thank you. It's awesome.
Well, I can remember having gatherings down at Cumberland City where people would just go down there and catch hundreds of them, take them home, put them in the freezer, and then 6 months later, 3 months later, hey, I just killed a deer. I ain't got no room in my freezer. Anybody need some skipjack?
They didn't need them. They're just taking them just because they could.
Yeah. Well, but they're fun to catch. New people go down there and they figure out they can catch 2 and 3 pound fish. But yeah, but
you can catch a skipjack and throw it back in the water, Steve. So why are they just taking?
Yeah, don't know.
You remember Cabela's King Cat last year where we called somebody out? He's in jail now, so we ain't got to worry about him. But
he's working.
He was sitting there boasting, I've got 600, and we were all like, the hell you do? And he's like, well, I'm paying for my trip down here. And that was a mindset. And, was ex-Pay Lake or whatever. And it was like, why the hell are you boasting about it?
Well, it cost him.
Oh, yeah. I'm appreciative of what Chris has gotten done. I'm a guide. Yeah, I'd love to have plenty of bait. Me and some of the other guys talk about it. We're just trying to get to a point where we don't book more than 2 trips in a row, and then we'll go handle our baits on an off day and then go back at it. It doesn't bother me. I saw several people pissing and moaning about it, and I'm like, hey, there's several people you can blame, and they're easy to find. They're the biggest whiners right now. But
well, we really can't exactly blame the Pay Lakers totally on that because all the Cabela's and all that. Yeah. I've seen thousands of pounds of these things be set up at MRM or Cabela's to sale.
Yep.
I think they ought to make the tournaments. Back in the old days, I had to go down to any dam I could, drive 500 miles sometimes to get 20 skipjack to fish with. I think a man, if he's going to fish a tournament, needs to go out and be able to provide his own bait.
I agree.
I probably have a lot of people mad at me about that because there's a lot of guys that don't have time to go out and catch bait. But if you're going to be a real fisherman, you need to know how to catch that bait.
Yeah,
100%.
that or you're throwing a cast net for shad or another legal means and using that bait that you caught.
Yep.
But figure it out.
Figure it out. That's right.
Well, guys, it's been fun. I want to see my wife tonight before we go to bed. I'm gonna have to hop off here shortly. My biggest takeaway or give to everybody is keep pushing, keep trying to get the social media influencers, TikTok, whoever. Keep sharing info, make it popular, make it. I've heard people complain, "Oh, you're advertising for the pay lakes." I promise, nobody's driving 400 and 500 miles to go fish these pay lakes. It's a very, it's in the tri-state area. They're all in very short distance. Them fish are dead anyhow. They're gonna die. It doesn't matter. Make people aware that don't have a clue what this is. And hold some of your companies accountable. There's a lot of people with fish, big stakes in the game. I don't mind hurt feelings. I don't mind arguments. I'll sit there and whatever. You can hate me for it. Whatever. It's got more awareness now. And I wish it was this much awareness 10 years ago. And 5 years ago. To me, while the fire's hot, keep pushing and let it keep getting attention. You can fix a problem easier if people know that it's a problem, and just try to stay, constructive when you have the discussion of why this is a bad thing. And if somebody, calls you an asshole or whatever, just brush it off, keep going. Let them broadcast who they are. That's fine. Let them represent pay lakers, because the majority, what we're having an issue with. Let them represent that, and they do a fine job at representing themselves. Even the number one owner that we all can't stand does a great job of. Pride's a weakness. Let him do it. It's not going to hurt anything. But it has been fun. I've got to go. I would like to see my wife tonight. I didn't know this was going to be that long. But if anybody has any questions, comments, and concerns, to holler at me. I don't mind.
Awesome,
JR. Thanks. Thanks for
being
being part of all your effort.
All right.
Yep. Good to see you, JR.
Good to see y'all. I'm headed to Louisiana. If you need me, I'll be down south here soon. So.
Good luck, my man.
Good
All
luck.
Right behind you.
Yeah, be safe.
Yeah.
Glenn, you want to?
And this is the
Go
reason
ahead.
we are all here right now. Is you heard what Roger said, and you heard what JR said. JR's ready to go to Louisiana because this keeps spreading and spreading and spreading and spreading. The reason me and Roger can meet each other 7 hours from my house and just happen to run into each other is because same thing's happening to me that's happened to him. And this will keep spreading and spreading and spreading. And we all don't want to move to Louisiana. We'd like to be able to catch fish in our back door, and we should be able to. And here's another financial thing that people don't think about, and maybe the states don't think about. The reason property in my county is worth so much money is because there's stuff to do here. People want to come here. It's a tourist thing. And JR is talking about moving. He's talked about how many people have moved to Alabama. You have no idea at the comments I get. People that have moved to my area for the fishing, right? This guy buys a house on a lake house to retire. He might not like catfishing at all. But if 500 people move to the same lake around him from out of state, that raises property value of his house, even though he could care less about a catfish. Because growth in states, when people are moving there, that creates a demand for the housing. Your property goes up. So this guy that could care less about fishing, his property value went up because it was a nice place to live and people moved there. But if you turn it into a slum where you've got to go to Louisiana to enjoy the same thing, that guy's house don't go up. You know what I mean? It's the reason you can buy property so cheap up in Ohio and Illinois compared to what you can here. Everybody wanted to move here. But all that is disappearing, as far as the outdoor thing, because now all of us Tennessee boys are driving to Alabama, James River. I would love to move to the James River, but now they're wanting to destroy that. I would love to move to Alabama, but I see it declining. I don't want to move to Louisiana. Too many mosquitoes. But yeah, I mean, this thing is getting nationwide and just spreading, man. And it's what finally got everybody to get here and speak up. Nobody's been speaking up on our side of it. Nobody's been hearing our side of it, and the public does not have the awareness of what's going on. They don't realize it's a problem. J.R. Hall put out a post, and there's some guy on my Facebook. He started this big petition, and he's gotten a hold of one of the PWRA agents, and he's going to have a meeting with him. And his post got like 109 shares, and he's not even popular. People that wants to join in. That's just some of these local boys that's tired of what happened to here. Yeah, this is getting big, and people starting to get upset about it because it's affecting us. We're feeling the pressure.
Well, I've seen a lot of those petitions over the years, but the thing is, they've got to follow through. They can't start it and then just, they don't see it working and back off. They've got to follow through with what they're doing, and I think that's a little issue as well. They got good intentions, no doubt. But when we started, I made my first video, I think in 2010, and here it is. I don't think we got really good regs until last year, did we, Justin? Decent.
Yeah.
Decent. So there's like 10 or 12 years of slow ass negotiations to get this stuff. It takes a minute. It ain't gonna happen overnight. And just because you're a YouTuber doesn't mean you can tell the state of Kentucky or state of Ohio or whatever what to do. They're not going to listen to me or you or any of us.
Right.
It's got like say go like Chris said. I think the legislative. I think that may be a good key place to start rather than the commissioners, because I haven't got nothing from the commissioners.
I agree. I haven't either.
Right.
So Chris, tell. I mean, you said you would help us like in Kentucky and Ohio and all that. What is it that you can do? I mean, you got ties up in these other states of like-minded people like yourself that could help?
No, I don't, but I know how to find them.
Okay, that's important.
And what we have to do is get a piece of legislation drafted, and I can take care of that.
And you'll do it in Alabama.
Yeah,
but then
or I can get it ready in Alabama, but I can give it to y'all, and we can all do it at the same time. I don't have to do it one year. Yeah. We can, I can get it ready, and all you have to do is take it, and I can go with you to wherever some of your officials, legislators, and they just have it change the name from Alabama to whoever, and they might want to change a few things on it, but we can do that and find some people interested, and I can help you find some people that's interested.
Awesome.
So, Chris, what would your advice be if we wanted to chop the head of this thing off in Ohio and go after, regulations on pay lakes themselves? I mean, what would that look like as far as drafting something?
That I don't know. It all depends on how much clout they have and how many. Remember me saying relationships. Depends on how many relationships they have, and you can't force nothing on anybody,
Right. But I mean,
I hate to say this, guys, but probably should take a few minutes and have a discussion on some of the ideas that y'all have. We need this off air.
Off air, yeah, you're right. Right.
So great ideas,
okay.
And everybody can see that there's some ideas that are about to be bounced back and forth, but some of it should probably hold back just a little bit.
Right.
Gotcha.
Well, I think look we've been on for almost 2.5 hours, and I think we could probably be on here for another 2.5 easily. And I think that we can maybe wrap things up and maybe revisit all this another time. I think it's great. I think it's a great forum to have and to bring people together to talk about this and at least educate everybody as far as what can be done, what is being done.
Well, Glenn, if you don't mind, maybe speak on that. Like at the beginning of the show, you spoke about you've been kind of off the scene, and so me included and the public hasn't seen the ACA publicize their efforts and things that they're doing. And so, in my opinion, you really haven't received any credit or any accountability for the efforts that you guys have really been putting on. And maybe give people an idea of what the ACA has actually been doing and what we're looking forward to going to next. What's the next step for you?
Well, the ACA was set up to kind of unite the catfish community, and I think in a lot of ways we've done that. We have a long ways to go. We're actually considering a whole different model, I think, which would actually create an even better opportunity for people to be involved. And we'll talk more about that in the near future. In the past, what we've done is we've built relationships with various state agencies. We're in the midst of having conversations with many of them. We've had many conversations. We don't publicize it because we don't want the opposition to know what we're talking about. That's not the way you do it. You have to do it quietly, but it's a little discouraging sometimes, though, too. We were at the Catfish Conference, and we had a large sign out, with a whole list of all the regulations that we would like to see the states consider. And we had a petition form there for people to sign. And Steve, you had 12,000 people through the door, and we had 3 or 4 of those sheets that were filled out. If people want change, they've got to get involved. They've got to support that change.
Well, I think the silence in that situation is hurting you, though. I think.
Well, you can call whatever you want, Roger, but we're not going to change. We're not going to change our MO, to appease, people that think that maybe we're doing something wrong. Right. Those that know the efforts that we're putting forward know what we're doing is right.
Well, and I'm with Roger a little bit on this. Like before we had the pregame conversations and stuff, I didn't know that the ACA was involved in this whatsoever. I mean, I was coming on here kind of thinking, where's the ACA been in this, until I learned all the stuff that you guys have been doing. I mean, I wish we would have known, maybe not what exactly you're up to, but maybe that you're in the fight. You know what I mean? I would have liked
we put that out there, though, Ryan, several times in the past. I mean, you may not be aware of it, but I mean, it's been out there.
Well, what I'm saying is conservation. It would, like, this is a great start. You know what I mean? Like, not just a start, but it's a great format to let people know you're in the fight. But I mean, I had these questions just like Roger just brought up, like, where's the ACA been in all of this? And I mean, maybe not let people know what you're up to, but let them know you're in the fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, because I find, once I started poking around,
here's just another opportunity to let people know that yes, we are in the fight, and we continue to be. We've aligned ourselves with other massive associations. The American Sport Fishing Association, the Congressional Sportsmen's Group, or something. I forget the actual name of it, but we're signatories on a lot of stuff that go to Washington now. We're little by little making great headway. And you got to remember something too, is that, for the most part, what's being done out there is being done by me.
Sure.
And I'm one person and I can do just so much. And I'm looking for assistance and I'm looking for direction. And it ain't easy,
guys,
especially when 50% of the time you're getting thrown under the bus. So the bottom line is that we are out there trying to make a difference the best way we can. When I got to travel somewhere, that money's coming out of my pocket.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying I'm glad to hear that you guys are in it. I'd like to see more of this instead of just focus on tournaments. And I think you guys, have a platform and a following to do some good. And I'm glad to see that you're in the fight. I just wish I would have known more about it, at least some about it, more than what I learned just recently. So.
That's exactly what happened to me. I started poking around. Actually, Justin and Jeremy, and I was starting to ask questions because I was fired up about the everything I'm seeing on social media. And yeah, it's easy to kick and scream on social media and be a hero, but like, what are we going to really do about it? So I was reaching out to these guys about how to get information, get a show of my own. And that's actually why I ended up here, is because I was happened to be poking and prying at the same time. And then I started finding out that, hey, the ACA has actually been doing this. Glenn has been on top of this and done that. And I'm like, well, damn, I didn't know any of that, and I know Glenn has seen the same comments in chat that I've seen, and then most of you have seen. It's like, if we can get people to support this and get behind it, and if they knew and understood what was really going on, then I think our momentum would be a lot greater. Like you said, 3 forms filled out at the Catfish Conference. That should have been 300, 3,000.
I agree. But the other thing too, Roger, is I also realize the deficiencies of the ACA. I realize that we need to be able to do more, but we're limited as far as our resources, our time, and the amount of effort that can be put forward, just because there's 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week. And what in my downtime over the last few months, I've put together kind of a white paper on, creating a new model for the ACA, real quickly. I mean, I'll just, high level, but, we're going to create regions throughout the country, 6 regions. And we're going to put 6 regional directors in there who can go ahead and establish their own subcommittees, so that in those regions, they're going to be a lot more intimate with what's going on there. When I'm trying to figure out what's going on in 20, 30 states, it's impossible. But when you've got a group together in different regions, that maybe there's 3, 4, 5 states that are involved, and it can evolve into a state type of deal, that's probably a better way to go. I'm not going to be around forever, and the ACA needs to be. So to create this model and to create these regions and such, I think would be a terrific opportunity for the ACA to continue to spread its wings.
The one thing that I've seen
together.
The one thing I've seen with the ACA since you came out, Glenn, and I told you this the other day, when I seen all this crap coming over the internet, I wanted to call you, but I knew you was off taking care of your health, is when you first come out, it wasn't 3 months later, people just assumed you had so much clout you could get this stuff done. I mean, I don't know that they realize you're a new entity, and it's going to take a minute to get you or the ACA where it needs to be, where legislators and such will pay attention. But I think it's the people out there that's with the AC or against the AC. They need to realize it takes a minute to get to where you need to be to where that happens. And if they could, I'm gonna take a little more time to figure out what you're about. I think it would grow a lot quicker.
Well, yeah, and that's fine. And look, have I done everything perfectly? Of course not. Have I made mistakes? Will I continue to make mistakes? Yeah, we do. I've learned from them. But at the same time, I mean, people think that the ACA is simply a money grab. There's nobody making money. Right. I haven't made a dime since working on this thing, and that's been almost 5 years since spending a year in just putting together the business plan and the functional specifications and everything else.
Right. Well, I understand where you're coming from, because I got a lot of hate.
You've done it too.
A lot of hate back when I first started it.
So I mean,
because I wasn't doing enough.
I've kind of, it goes in one ear and out the other. I mean, there's been some comments, through in chat all night long, throwing the ACA under the bus. Mm-hmm. Okay, fine. I don't care. It's not the people that continue to be negative. It's the people that want to do something and they're positive that are going to move the needle. It's like what we're doing tonight, when we're all getting together, we're talking about this thing and trying to figure out a game plan to move it forward. That's the important stuff.
Right.
The bullshit,
centralized platform.
The BS that goes on social media is just that. I got no patience for it anymore.
Well, you remember what I told you about 6 months ago, if you remember, and I'll probably get some hate on this too. You were concentrating a lot on conservation, and I thought it was like overkill. And I told you should promote the tournaments a little bit more, to kind of mix it up a little bit to get people involved. You remember me talking about that to you?
Yeah, I remember it all.
And it don't need to be totally about tournaments, but it needs to be some entertainment in there. And nothing
about everything. It's about everything.
An association cannot be a strictly conservation thing.
No.
It's got to be for the community.
It's about everything, Stephen. We realize that. And like I said, there's 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, and you just can't get it all done with one or two or three people. You just can't. It takes all of us. And that's why, the catchphrase, it's time, it's our time to make a difference. And when I say our time, it's the entire catfish community coming together to do it. And I'm always open to suggestions, and I'm always looking to work with people. And people call me all the time, and more people are more than welcome to call me at any time.
Mm-hmm.
And you could ask anybody. I'll answer the phone and I'll call them back.
I know you do. You call me late, and I call you late, and we're always working.
I mean, but what I won't do, and I won't do anymore, is I'm not going to tolerate the crap that goes online. I just won't. It's just, to me, it's a waste of my time, and it's insulting, I think, to a lot of people that do put the kind of effort in that needs.
It's a little depressing. I mean, that's why.
I was going to say, as a human, it's discouraging to put in work if you just constantly get kicked in the balls.
It is what it is. I mean, I got thick skin. I'm not. It's not going to keep me up at night. Certainly not anymore.
Well, that's one of the reasons I started doing stuff in the background. I don't need to go out and beat my chest and say, "Hey, I went and did this, this, and this." People aren't interested, but I'm still in the background doing what I can.
Again, we've got to be careful with what we do publicly, because we don't want to tip our hand as far as the conversations that we have and the people that we're working with. And again, it's not just us. I can tell you, like Bill Dance, Angie Box, I brought up earlier. They've moved the needle in so many ways. I mean, there's some great people out there that support our efforts, and we support theirs. Again, our resources are limited, and not only just funds, but effort. I mean, it takes time.
Yep.
People are very critical of what we do, or what they think we do or don't do. And again, Ryan and Roger, I mean, you both kind of had questions as far as what we do. And yeah, we need to do a better job as far as letting people know what's going on. We want to create like a monthly newsletter. It's just
that'd be very beneficial.
Well,
you
I know that you guys are in the fight. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm glad you are. I had questions about it, like, because you're the association that's supposed to bring us all together and have our best interests at heart.
I think this is a topic you guys should be all example of that happening.
Yeah. Guys, I want to ask Glenn, where is the posted what you had up on the screen at the Catfish Conference of the stance that the ACA is asking of these states to do something about conservation? That's posted on the site somewhere, correct?
You're talking about the 9 regulations that we propose to every state.
Yes.
It's probably on our Facebook page somewhere.
I'm sure it is, and if not, it's gonna be correct. Very simple.
I'll repost it. I'll repost. We got that. We've got that video on the Pay Lakes that we did last year.
Yep.
I'd be happy to post it.
So, guys, and it's not Ryan or Roger, but it's just everybody in general. They don't understand. They think this ACA is this. It's a great platform to bring everybody together, but it's literally ran by basically one person.
Right.
One person.
Well, that was the reason for the comments. I think you got to get more support.
Yeah. All of us sitting here, all of us online commenting, everybody needs to step up and do something. Right. Justin posted.
That's where it gets discouraging when you ask people to step up and you're talking about.
Well, there's people online. I'm reading right here. People said that they'll donate 20% of their paychecks for a month if the ACA shows what they've been doing. That's easy. Great. We don't want you 20% of your paycheck. That's irrelevant. But it's on there. If you look, if you talk to certain people, you'll hear that Glenn flew up on his own dime. Those of us that were there, Steve, Justin, at meetings multiple times to fight.
Yeah, you guys abused me. I mean, Steve Douglas, he abused me as far as how I was dressed.
I was a naysayer. I'm not sure about this. I don't know what to think about this company. This guy, I didn't know you, Glenn, and I wanted to start and do my own thing. But why, when you've already got the platform? So for those of people, it's not just Glenn, but it can be everybody can have a hand in it and get to the same goal. If you guys want to do tournament regulations and fishing and all that, great. I'm more concerned about conservation. I'll tournament fish, but I'm
Well,
more,
I'll tell you, I've been a part. I don't want to say I've been a part of. I've been watching Glenn for quite some time.
oh yeah.
A lot of people say it's a money grab. I don't see it as a money grab.
Where's the money?
Yeah, where's
Yeah.
the money? Yeah.
No offense, Glenn, but I'm saying,
Yeah, no. I mean,
stand up for you and say,
that's a good question. Where's the money? Because
Hey,
you know
you know
understand.
what,
We
though?
have like software licensing. I'll give
You
you
got
that.
this
Software
guy-
licensing. We're paying like $15,000 a year just in software licensing.
hey, Glenn, did you and Justin Browning always talk? No.
Well, sort of.
No.
I remember when Justin Browning used to
Justin
call
always
his
talk?
stuff Tupperware.
Hey, well, that's okay. I mean, and look at I consider that to be a compliment because I mean, if Rig Rep ever becomes the size of Tupperware, I mean that's a pretty significant company. So yeah, I'm good with that.
People that know Justin, if people that know the how passionate he is, whether he's went about certain things right or wrong in his eyes, he has. But from the outside looking in, standing next to him, I see a lot of this, and I'm going. But people that know him go, huh? He's actually on here trying and participating and helping and giving information and feeding guys. It's happening. So please help join in.
Yeah, it takes everybody.
If that doesn't speak volumes, I don't know what does.
In the last few months, JR's brought a lot of attention to Pay Lakes again. Okay, Pay Lakes, you know, it comes and it goes. It comes and it goes. And yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are always thinking about it. But it's like a lot of the subject matter. It tends to come and go. There's got to be consistency. I think Chris's suggestion as far as writing the legislation that we can take the various states, and I won't call it a written legislation, but again, the points that we bring forth to the states as far as the regulations that we'd like to see reformed and put in place is more of a uniform request. I think we can take that and we can build off of that. But again, you're not going to get your whole wish list.
Well, another thing
you're going to get one or two things, and you're going to have to take that as a win, and you consider moving the needle. But it's going to take a lot of time. I mean, you know, Steve and Justin and so many others have spent years on legislation and regulation reform just in Kentucky, and finally,
10 years later, 15 years later, yeah. One thing I'd like to say, I look on Facebook a lot and I see F the Pay Lakers, that kind of stuff, that the catfishing community, I know they're against the Pay Lakers, but I don't feel like we should belittle a dude that fishes a Pay Lake. We need to be educating that dude instead of belittling the individuals that have to fish a Pay Lake. I don't know if I'm making any sense or not, but it just, you know, when I built the Catfish Conference, I built a community of family-oriented type stuff. And some of the stuff I'm seeing on line is not really family-oriented.
You're not going to influence if they don't like you. If you make them hate you, you can't influence them.
Right, exactly.
It's on my Facebook that I have Pay Lakers that are on my Facebook. They don't cause no trouble. They watch my videos, you know, and they don't argue. They don't talk back and forth, and they love watching me. And here again, if people respect you, those people, you've got a shot of getting them to listen.
Exactly.
You can put your middle finger up in their face, they're not going to listen very long.
Right.
No, they're going to come back at you. Well, screw you, river rat.
It doesn't, you know, pushing and shoving isn't going to accomplish anything. It really doesn't. And you know, if you speak to people with respect and professionally, you know, I think you can accomplish a whole lot more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a firm believer.
You
never demand of anybody. You suggest. You know, you encourage. I think that it's important that you pay pay people the respect. You know, at least initial trust and respect until they prove you wrong.
And if anybody's out there listening and you want to join the movement, I got a free space at the Catfish Conference. You can come set up, do your thing, promote conservation, anything you want. I mean, I'm an old dude. I'm fixing to fade out of this stuff, just like you, Glenn. We old dudes, but the younger.
Whoa, speak for yourself.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Steve, we need about 10, 20 guys out there actually at a booth big enough.
That's what I'm saying. I'll
grow
give
this
somebody.
stuff, and not just 1 or 2 or 3 people talking and asking for signatures. We need 20, 30 people there preaching this, talking to people, willing to do. Lend a hand out to a Pay Lake.
I'd love to see some younger folks come out there and take me up on the offer. I'll do what I can.
There's a good amount of time between now and the next Catfish Conference, and I think that we could develop a plan that would be significant and hopefully effective.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now from tonight's conversation, and Chris, thank you very much for your significant offer. I think that putting together that legislative piece and running it up the flagpole in Alabama, and see how it may go, and then taking it elsewhere, I think would probably be the best plan that we can put forth right now.
Right.
Would you guys agree? I mean, in chat and everywhere. I mean, I think it's a terrific idea, and Chris, I think it's a terrific offer. Thank you.
I appreciate it, guys. Listen, I got to get a shower and see if there's a new Catfish Day video on tonight.
Yeah, man. No, I think we should wrap it up overall. We're 2 hours 45 minutes into it. It's a school night, and we can pick this up again. I think this is a great way to communicate to everybody and to hear their concerns. And there's some great ideas that float around. Thank you everybody for spending the time and the effort.
I appreciate you allowing me to come up here and run my gums.
No, it's a great opportunity, but I think overall this is a great exercise. I think it's great, and again, to everybody's point, as far as the ACA being out there and what we're doing, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to unite everybody, and we're trying to do good. Believe me, and we do it every day. But
people just need to have an open mind and have faith in what you got going on, Glenn.
I can't do it alone. Myself, my business partner, Steve Miller, George Young is part of this, and those that have supported this thing from day one. Hats off to CARC and B&M and Offshore Tackle. They were in this thing right from the very, very beginning, and they continue to support it. CARC has been just absolutely unbelievable as far as supporting us and the entire catfish community. So anybody's thinking about a boat, make sure you go to carcboats.com. Hey, you got to support those that support you, and they certainly have.
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to say before you leave, though, just like the Catfish Conference, I can't control if Pay Lakers come in there and buy Mad Cat rods or Tangle Catfish rods, monster rod holders, anything like that. So I wouldn't go and try to blame the businesses that may possibly sell. I mean, the guy just orders online. I can't ask him if he's a Pay Laker. And it's the same with most other businesses. We're not going to vet people that's buying our products.
Well, people have to realize too that Pay Lakes and tackle stores and that they also buy from distributors and jobbers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you don't know. I mean, if a distributor buys your product, you don't know where it ends up.
Right.
So I mean, I'm not going to find fault with industry people that are trying to sell their wares. I think it'd behoove them if they participated with the efforts that we're trying to put forth here.
Yeah.
As an industry is supporting the efforts. So
now, if I was advertising to Pay Lakes and trying to get that, then I could say, mess with some people. But we can't control who buys our stuff. We can't control who comes into the Catfish Conference.
Yeah, well,
I think we all understand that. You're just doing business.
I don't think that pointing your finger at anybody in particular is a good idea. I think that identifying the problem and trying to come up with a solution overall is probably the best effort that can be made. I just don't think it accomplishes anything when you start, this kind of thing. Just do it on an overall.
Well, shut her down, Glenn. Let's talk to Chris offline so he can get us lined out before he takes a shower.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate everybody spending the time. I'm going to put this outro in, but stick around. And thanks again. We'll do this again soon.
Yes.
Yeah,
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good show.
It's about passion for a sport we all enjoy. It's about conservation, education, community, and fellowship. It's about a single voice of strength. It's about being part of a common cause for the common good. It's about you. It's about us. It's our time to come together.
We're asking you to join us.
And become a proud members American Catfish Association. You'll be happy you did. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, they are.